All right, the recording started. So I'll start us off with the welcome to country. Bujari Gamarua. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the various lands on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to the elders both past, present, and future. As we come together in this place of learning to grow and share knowledge, may we always remember the Aboriginal custodianship of country embedded in this land forever. So for the sake of our spectators, the competitors will be taking turns to interview the client, and the client interview will be running for around 30 minutes. Afterwards, there'll be a 25-minute period in which the competitors will be giving their self-reflection and the judges will be giving their feedback. And after the first round, we'll take a 10 to 15-minute break so the judges can take a well-deserved break and fill in the score sheet. So I'm just going to open the breakout rooms now so our second team can go and wait there. Feel free to enter whenever you're ready. All right, now that they're off, I will be leaving our competitors and our client, and our judges' very capable hands. If you need any help at all, I'll be right here.
All right, team, I'm the timekeeper for tonight. I'll press start when you guys are ready, and best of luck. Thank you. And our judges will be in the background listening with their cameras and microphones off.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Charlie. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Nermit. My partner is Elena. We represent Sydney Law & Co. We want to thank you for coming here today. We understand that you had a issue that you want to address with us. We just want to begin by saying that we want to establish a new lawyer-client privilege between us. So anything you say within this meeting will be privileged between me, Elena, and yourself. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask. We'll help explain regarding what the terminology is. And I just want to advise that in this meeting, if you do tell us about anything regarding public safety, or if it's within the commission of a crime, those are things we will have to, I guess, talk about elsewhere, just because those are exceptions to the lawyer-client privilege between us. If it's all right with you, we understand with the COVID-19 situation, it's impersonal meeting this way, but we'll do our best to help hear you and help solve the issues that you come to us with. Is that all right?
Sounds good, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So just want to start off by asking, what brought you in here today?
So I've just had a couple of issues at work recently, and I guess a little bit in my personal life. I just wanted to come and get some advice on those issues. It's been quite stressing for me.
Yeah, no problem. Now, before we begin, I just want to ask your specific objectives regarding the workplace issues and personal issues that you're facing. Exactly what would you want to achieve after this meeting? How would you feel?
Well, I guess I just kind of want to see if I can get some sort of compensation, what's happened, or whether or not I can continue where I'm working. Yeah, I think there are also some other issues in regards to some things that have happened to me personally that I really want addressed. It's just been a very, very long couple of months.
Okay, no problem. So I guess don't mind us if we write notes in between the meeting. We're just trying to get a gauge of exactly what you're going through. So I just like to ask you to begin by telling us exactly what happened in the past couple of months.
Yeah, so I've just returned to Australia from the UK, and I've been there for a couple of months with my mum. And I live with my girlfriend in Australia, and have been doing so for the last 2 years. I guess in regards to some of my work issues, I work as a web designer for an agency called Party Incorporated. And we've just had a lot of big clients recently. I guess 3 months ago, we were working on a website rebuild for a client called Alphabet.
Okay.
And we've been trying to propose a more modern website. I've just had some issues with the project supervisor, who we have idealistic differences with. So they think that the supervisor's name is Jules, and they think that, the website doesn't really need that much change, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that my version of the website will improve Alphabet's client image. But I guess a lot of the other people on the team also disagree with me on that one. I guess very recently, Jules told me that, we need to go with the majority agreement here, and we need to focus on what the client is trying to achieve. And I guess I was a bit unhappy with that because, as I kind of mentioned earlier, we've had these idealistic differences, and I just think that my ideas will be a big asset to the project, and I tell him this, and I guess that kind of results in him pushing me into my desk, and I end up hitting my knee, and I just hear this really loud crack sound, and I don't know if that means anything. I haven't seen a doctor about it yet. I'm just really, really nervous about what that means, and I'm just, really, really stressed out about this incident.
Okay, no problem. So from what I gather, you had a disagreement with your boss, your supervisor, regarding this big project that you guys are handling. And it resulted in a confrontation where he pushed you and you hurt your knee?
Obviously I don't know what's happened with my knee. I just heard this loud crack sound, but yeah, that was pretty much what happened. We got into a confrontation over our differences.
Okay, now has your injury prevented you from being able to work in the environment?
No, not particularly. Again, I haven't really seen a doctor about this. I don't think there's been any issue where I've had to see a doctor, but I don't actually know if there's anything wrong just yet.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Now, regarding this issue that you had with your super Jules, how did you respond after he pushed you and you hurt your knee?
That's pretty much it. So after he pushed me, that was pretty much the end of the altercation.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. And did you approach him again afterwards and discuss the situation, how that made you feel uncomfortable?
No, I haven't been in contact with Jules since then.
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, are you hoping to seek compensation for the injury you sustained at work because of this situation?
Well, I don't know if it's compensation. I would prefer that I be compensated for the thing that is done, the things that is done to me. But I just want to know what action I might have against him, especially since that crack sound makes me think it's possible that I've broken my knee.
Absolutely. No, that's understandable. Regarding this issue, I would advise that one of the first things is do seek a medical professional, see what the issue is with your knee, even if it's not hindering your work. Also, have you reached out to human resources in your workplace?
Yeah, but they haven't really, I guess, addressed this particular issue at all.
Okay. Now, do you fear that you will lose your position at work because of this situation if you were to continue following up with this?
Because of this situation, no, not really. I don't think this situation is going to be an issue.
Okay, no problem. Now, if you don't mind, I'll have Elena ask regarding the personal issues that you're facing between you and your family and your girlfriend.
Hi, Charlie. I'm so sorry to hear about your injury at work. It sounds like it's been a tough few months with the pandemic and now this as well.
Really
I'm sorry you're dealing with that.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you just mentioned some personal issues outside of work that you wanted some help with.
Yeah, so obviously, a lot of this has happened quite some time ago, a couple months ago, and I guess regarding the personal issues, so the day after this incident happened with my supervisor, I got a call from my mum. She lives in rural England, and she very pressures me really, really heavily to fly back to the UK to take care of her. So obviously, I pretty much had to drop everything and leave, and that was really, really stressful, and I just wasn't able to, gather too many of my bearings before I left. So I had to tell everyone at work that I had to take care of her for the foreseeable future. Now, I contacted the managing director of Party Incorporated, Flora, to ask if it was okay for me to work remotely from my mother's house for the next 3 weeks at that point, and they agreed. They kept giving me client work. Yeah, I guess some of my personal issues have kind of bled into my work in that, I was called by the managing director later to say that she wasn't happy with my work, and I got really upset, and I told her that, she wasn't really accommodating me taking care of my mother, and that I wanted to take carer's leave. So after doing that, I was able to remain in the UK for another 2 months. I guess that's mainly the situation with my mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sorry, were you going to say something?
Oh, well, I mean, I obviously said that, I've been in the UK for 2 months and I've just gotten back. I got terminated after I came back. I found out that I'd been terminated, and I wasn't paid for any of my work that I was doing whilst I was overseas. And obviously, given that the coronavirus has meant that everyone's been working from home, I've just been unable to see the managing director or talk to anyone from HR. So I'm just kind of really stuck. I don't have a job. This possible medical issue is still burdening me, and I'm just not really sure what to do from here.
Okay. So just so I understand, so you went to the UK to take care of your mom, and originally Flora said that you could work from there, take care of your mom, and still work remotely for the website rebuild, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then she said that she didn't really like your work, and later when you got back 2 months ago, you got terminated from your job.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and what did you do after you got terminated?
That's pretty much been it. I haven't been able to, like, I obviously was trying to get in contact with managing director or HR, but just, yeah, I haven't been able to, just because the coronavirus has been preventing me from doing so, because everyone's working at home, so I can't really visit the office and no one's there anyway.
Yeah, okay.
I had a quick question. You referenced the fact that you were unpaid for the work that you did while you were in the UK?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, no problem. That's really difficult. I can understand everything you're going through and just having to do all this after the altercation, leaving the day after and not being paid for anything. That's a very stressful time. And we're happy that you came to us because we'll do our best to try to sort this thing out.
Yeah, thank you. It's really difficult not having a job, especially in the current economic situation. I can't really, I don't have any income at the moment.
Yes, no problem. May we ask how your mother's doing right now?
Look, my mom's doing all right. She's so just when she called me, she told me over the phone that she'd been harassed by her neighbors, who like ones that she said had been wielding guns and shooting around the house.
Mm-hmm.
And when I arrived, I told my mom that, like, I figured out that she'd been lying about it, but I just needed to stay in the UK to cool down from my encounter with my supervisor. So my mom's all right. I think she's lied about the situation she was in, but I just took the opportunity to take a break.
Okay, so that must be really difficult. You came there to look after your mother, but because of the situation at work, you felt like you needed to stay there to cool down before you came back. And upon returning, you lost your job.
Yeah, that's right.
That must be extremely stressful. I can definitely understand that's hard to deal with. You mentioned you had a girlfriend?
Yeah, so Sasha, I guess this whole issue it's not completely unrelated as well. There's been some issues there. I just, look, when I got back from the UK, things haven't been going so well. Since I've gotten back, a lot of my expensive objects, like my shot glasses, which are antiques, they're missing. I just haven't seen them. I asked her what had happened. She said that, she loaned them to a friend and that she'll bring them back soon.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you and your girlfriend live together at home?
Yeah, so I've been living with her for 2 years.
Okay. Now, is there any other issues at home regarding you and your girlfriend? Like, do you guys fight? Are there any other problems amongst you guys there?
No, I mean, look, not really. Just like a couple of weeks after I returned, I started getting really sick and I was really worried that I got the coronavirus, and my vision's been really blurry and I've just started slurring my speech a little bit. And, I told my girlfriend, who was just really, really, really paranoid after everything that had happened, the fact that I just been overseas and everything. Mm-hmm. And we ended up we're not together anymore. We broke up.
Just really quick, have you gotten any of your expensive items back?
No.
From your girlfriend? No, so you don't know where those are at the moment.
Well, I'm not really comfortable talking about this, but I guess
you can take your time. It's okay.
So she told me that she'd bring the items back soon, but I wasn't really satisfied with the answer. I thought something that was really suspicious and off about what she said. So I followed her one day when she was on her way to work, and I saw her into a pawn shop. I found out that she's been loaning those items to be able to pay off a credit card debt, which has come from a recent holiday. So I've been trying to get them back, but I was told that they've been loaned to another customer and I can only get them back if my girlfriend requests for them, because she's the one that loaned them in the first place.
Okay. That sounds very difficult to find your stuff being pawned without your consent. I'm so sorry about that. Do you know how much she pawned them for or how much her credit?
No, I've got no information on that, unfortunately. Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. And just so I understand, you weren't a part of this vacation that she went on.
No, this is something completely different. She was in Asia.
Okay.
No,
well, there's definitely seems to be a few issues at play. So like Nirma said, it's really good you came in to talk to us, and I appreciate you being open and vulnerable to talking about it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just been really, really hard to deal with just a lot of things that have happened.
Yeah, for sure.
Regarding the shot glasses, do you hope to, I understand you probably wish to get them back, but if there's a situation where you're unable to retrieve the shot glasses, would you be comfortable with being reimbursed for that situation? Because we understand they were handed out to another store.
Yeah, so I really want to get those antiques back because they are antiques. They're not really easy to find, but if I can't get them back, I'd like some compensation from her for the value of those items.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, that's understandable.
Okay, well, I think moving forward, maybe we can just talk about each situation specifically. So we'll talk about the situation with the jewels, we'll talk about Flora, we'll talk about Sasha, and the compensation for the shot glasses, just so we can figure out a solution for each one individually, since there is a lot going on. So Nirma, do you want to maybe start with the jewel situation at work?
Absolutely. Now, regarding your workplace situation, you said you want to continue working there?
Yeah, I do. It's just, well, if I do end up continuing to work that, I don't really want to be in the same, I don't want to be in the same department as I used to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's understandable. You don't want to work under Jules anymore, but you do want to work for the company as well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Now, what we can suggest is, first of all, reaching out to HR as much as for you. We can reach out to HR, and just, I guess, and the managing director, just because from this situation, what we feel like is a wrongful termination. Did you feel like? Now, I can't promise that it exactly was. We can do some further research, but with the information you're providing, it feels as if that you felt wrong in the situation when you were terminated. Does that sound about right?
I don't think it was fair. I don't know what you mean by, I guess, wrongful termination, but I just don't think it was fair that I got fired, I guess.
No, essentially wrongful termination means, as you're describing, like you don't feel like it was fair grounds that you were fired, especially after the situation where you were trying to voice your opinion regarding a simple project and you were shut down. And when you provided information that you wanted to take care of your mother, irrespective of the reason that she called you over, they terminated you upon return. And they didn't compensate you for the time that you worked while remote.
Yeah, I'm just, I don't know. I'm not sure if I think that, I guess, that the altercation with Jules was responsible for my termination.
Mm-hmm. No.
I think it was more to do with, I guess, the fact that I took time off.
Okay, no problem. That's pretty fine. Now, when you took the time off, did you file a leave of absence at work? Did you inform them the reasons why you were leaving?
Well, yeah. So I told the managing director it was okay for me to work remotely, and we came to an agreement with that.
That was okay.
Yeah, but I was also told that they couldn't retain me if I chose to stay longer than 3 weeks, and that I had to hire someone to replace me.
Okay. Now, they said that you couldn't be retained after 3 weeks, even if you were working remotely after 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Now, that does pose a little bit of a difficulty, but what we can say is that we can reach out to the managing director. And upon further research, we can see exactly what grounds you were terminated for, and if you have a reason to be compensated for, especially for the work that you did carry out. That is definitely something we can look into. So we will do that for you. Reach out to the managing director, find out if you can definitely be compensated for that work. With respect to finding employment back at this company and this firm, that is definitely something we will have to see if they terminated you wrongfully, if it was unfair, if they had grounds to do so, and if they didn't, then there's definitely something we can follow up with. Good solution would be if we could have some sort of mediation between you and the managing director, because clearly you're not getting any information from any of them.
Yeah. Sorry, can I ask what's mediation?
So essentially in mediation, what we can do is we can try to get your managing director, HR, yourself, and ourselves in a room so we can help hash out these issues that you've been facing at work. Because is your managing director aware of the altercation you had with Jules?
I don't think so. Again, I haven't been able to contact them either.
No problem. That's understandable. Now, that's why I guess airing out the issues that you've been faced with at work, this would be a perfect time to do so. So we feel like that is a possible solution for that. If you feel comfortable, I'll have Elena discuss the next issue that you've been facing.
Yeah, I guess so. I haven't been able to reach out despite multiple attempts to do so. I'm just not sure how you could go about that. I'm not sure.
No, absolutely. Elena, you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just wondering, so you said you haven't been able to reach Jules and after the altercation, correct?
So I've never tried to reach out to Jules, but I haven't been able to reach out to HR or the managing director.
Okay. And was anyone else aware of what happened?
I don't think so, no.
So nobody was in the office or anything like that?
And it's just been between the two of us.
Okay. Yeah, it would just be good to know if I mean, you said that no one else was there, but it's just good to have that for sure, so that when we contact HR, we can figure out if if it's a widespread thing, if it's happened before, if other employees have faced similar situations, which we hope not, but it would just be good to know.
So are you're trying to ask if there's been other issues with Jules?
Yeah,
Employees?
Yeah, to your knowledge, if there is any other issue between Jules and other employees, or yourself and other employees.
I mean, look, it's not the first time I've had issues with Jules. I guess it's the first time it's become physically violent. He's often opposed me at work, and I've always felt that his vendetta against me, him disagreeing with pretty much everything that I do, has been personal.
Okay, and when you get into those personal altercations, which are just verbal, what is the outcome usually?
Well, normally it's just a lot of disagreement. I think just this time I kind of snapped a little bit, and I just told him, mate, you've had problems with me since day one. You need to back off. And, I kind of shoved him when he said that the first time, when I said that the first time, and he collided into the meeting room door that he was leaning against. So that happened. And then he shoved me back.
Okay. So you shoved him and then he shoved you.
Yeah, that's right.
And in this situation, this is the first time that it's become kind of more physical than verbal.
Yeah, that's right. It's just been normally quite, just a lot of arguing, but nothing to this point. Okay.
It's good to know that you guys have been kind of against each other for a few situations. In terms of, pushing each other, obviously there was an altercation and it seems like you were also involved in at this point, which is good for us to know, so that when we bring that up, we are able to come forward and say that there was an altercation between the two. And knowing that there was, it makes sense that perhaps Jules is a little bit distant and doesn't want to answer. That doesn't make it okay, but it does make sense why he would kind of want to be disconnected from you. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I guess, do you think it'd be better if you were the ones that reached out, or?
Pardon?
Do you think that it'd be better if you were the ones that reached out?
I think we can reach out to HR and definitely try to contact HR. I think we should also, like Nermit said, get you guys both in a room in a mediated kind of way, just to talk through it, because to be honest, it does sound like there was a little bit of a physical, assault there, but
right. Okay.
We wouldn't want to go into litigation. We wouldn't want you to spend money. It is COVID-19. And so there would be ways around that. Like we said, there is mediation to try to figure that out before it gets there. And that would really involve just being open and communicating with Jules to see what he's thinking and really figure out what's going on with him.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. Just kind of is mediation expensive? Because obviously not having a job at this point, not having been paid,
Yeah.
I'm just not really sure how much I can afford to put out on this.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So we can arrange the mediation if you want to work with us. It will, there will be a cost to it, but we will do our best to keep that at a minimum. The other option is we can do you can put you in touch with a community legal service, which is a little bit, it's not as costly, and it'll be, we won't be working with you, but we'll always be here to support you in any way you need. So there's also that community center way to do that. And we can definitely, if that's something that you would want to look into, we can help you look into that and put you in contact with people.
Okay, no, that sounds good.
Okay. Regarding one thing, you said you never reached out to Jules?
No.
Okay. Now, regarding the situation, it does seem like, although there was animosity between you guys throughout some time, and you did say you pushed him first before he pushed you when you hurt your knee, it might be a possible situation where you might reach out to him and apologize for the situation.
Why would I do that though? He's been against me since day one.
Now, the only reason we're saying that is because, like Elena brought up, this does look like an assault in the workplace. And if you asked us earlier if it would be prudent for us to reach out to him first, if he were to begin to litigate, there is a possibility that he might try to charge you for assault and claim that when he pushed you, that could be self-defense. I can't give you a full-on answer just because we don't have all the facts of the scenario and we haven't done our further research. We don't want you to feel like you're put in a difficult situation. If it does feel like that's not something you're comfortable with, we definitely feel like mediation is a good route. So put you both in a room to help hash out and air out the differences you guys are experiencing.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Now, just with the last issue with Sasha and the pawn shop, so you said that you really would prefer to get your antique items back rather than being compensated, but at the end you will take compensation if you can.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so an ideal situation, you get your stuff back. And just when you went into the pawn shop, did you explain the situation at all, or were you just asking for help?
I was kind of ignored because I just wanted the items back, and they just said, no, we can't because you're not the one that loaned them to us. You can't just come take them.
Mm-hmm. And did you explain the situation?
Yeah, I did, but there's nothing they can do.
Right.
They
And
just
after you,
else.
sorry.
They've already been loaned to someone else, so.
Oh, they're currently loaned right now to someone else.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, and when you found that out, how were you feeling at the time when that happened?
I was really, really unhappy about that because obviously it meant that I wasn't able to get my items back, and I had to wait for Sasha to request them back. And obviously she wouldn't have wanted to do that because she had loaned them out for credit to pay for a holiday, and obviously we're not together anymore, so it's not really a good situation there.
Okay, and did you reach out to Sasha after that?
No, we haven't spoken since.
Okay, so she doesn't know that. To your knowledge, she doesn't know about the pawn shop and your items.
Well, I followed her. I don't think she knows that I followed her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as she knows, she's just told me that she's loaned them to a friend and she'll bring them back.
Okay. Now, regarding the issue of the pawn shop, we can't confirm this either, but we have to do some further research. But the fact that you were the original true owner of the items, it is a possibility that you can retain them because your girlfriend or ex-girlfriend essentially stole them from you and pawned them when they never really were hers. And it's not within the pawn shop's right to do so and pawn them out again when, as I said, you are the true owner of the items. So we can definitely reach out to the pawn shop and send a memo and explain the situation of what occurred, and have them ask them to collect the items that were taken.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, there is possibilities of litigating them, but we hope we don't have to reach that point.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't confirm this, but definitely something we'll have to research on to make sure that you have the right to collect your items back, because they were never Sasha's to begin with, so they can never be the pawn shops, and they don't have a right to pass them on. Once again, this is something me and Elena will go back and look into to make sure that we can have your items returned to you.
Okay, that puts me a little bit at ease.
Okay.
Honestly, again, prefer the items back, but given the current situation, money's a bit tight, so.
No, absolutely. And that's why if put in the situation where, let's just say the pawn shop decides not to be able to get them back because they've already been loaned out, they would have to reimburse you for that situation. Now, I can't confirm this, but we will go back and look into it further, but that is a possible outcome. So there is a possibility for you to be reimbursed for the items that you've been lost.
Okay, that sounds good.
Before we just move on to wrapping things up, is there anything else that you'd like to tell us or ask?
I mean, I guess I guess we don't really have much time to go through some of the other stuff, but I've just like, obviously it's more the circumstances under which Sasha and I broke up, which I'm just really frustrated with. Like, obviously, like I'd been gone for some time, and I think just when I was following her to the pawn shop, she was a bit flirtatious with a coworker, and during a lunch break, I found that person and who admitted they'd been sleeping together, and I just got so mad. I regret this a lot, but I broke their jaw, and I just broke their jaw, and I just ran. And I had a dark hat on, so I'm just hoping that they never saw me. But I'm a bit scared that they recognize me because we work at the same place.
Okay, so that's really good you told us. Thank you for telling us that. That is definitely something that we'll need to look into. Were you in contact with Sasha after that, or the person you punched?
No, we haven't spoken with. Yeah, we broke up mainly because I think she was a bit paranoid about the coronavirus.
Okay.
I just don't know. I don't know what will happen with that confrontation. Nothing's been reported, and I'm just trying to figure out if I can get away with it if they didn't recognize me.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, teams. We have 1 minute left.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to do that is definitely a very tricky situation. We're gonna have to look into that before we give you an answer. Ideally, you would reach out to Sasha, you would explain the whole situation. We don't want you to incur more legal costs, but what happened can be a serious matter. So we'll have to do some research, some homework. Moving forward, like Nermit said, we'll arrange some mediation, or we'll put you in contact with community center if you would rather do that route as well for financial issues. So you have a few days to think about it. We'll get some more information together, and maybe just your homework can be to come back with any more questions you have, any more information. Also see if you can reach out to HR personally or to Jules and figure that out, and then come back and we can have another discussion over the phone or in person or on Zoom again, whatever you like, and we can really move forward from there.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And regarding these shot glasses, if you can, and if you felt like Sasha stole them from you, then filing a police report regarding that would definitely help us when we're reaching out to the pawn shop.
Okay, and how do I do that?
If you want to go to your local police station, and file an issue where they were stolen from your home, and explain the situation that you went through, that could definitely help us reach out to the pawn shop and explain and provide them with evidence as to how to retrieve your items. And lastly, regarding the issue where you had punched, I guess, the other person, definitely feel like you do need to have legal representation because this is a very serious matter. If you can't afford to keep us and that becomes an issue, definitely stay in contact with the community legal center, especially the ones that we provide you with, because you definitely need to make sure you're protected in this situation as well.
Okay.
That's very important for you too. If you want to feel safe, I highly recommend retaining some sort of legal representation, because you may want to get away with the situation, but it could hurt you in the long run. And the best way to do is protect yourself.
Yeah. Okay. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
No problem. Do you feel like we've helped alleviate all your concerns today? If there's anything else, please do tell us, and follow up on us with memo or emails, or stay in contact on phone. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for that. I'll be in touch if I think.
Thank you.
All right, well done, guys. So if the judges could turn their videos back on. Perfect. So I'll send the competitors off into a breakout room now, and Casper, the client, you can just chat with the judges about how the competitors went.
In this chat?
Yep, so you guys can stay in the main room, and I'm just going to assign the competitors to a breakout room now. Feel free to join whenever you're ready, and I'll close the breakout room when it's time for you to come back.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have the floor.
Good job, Casper. Tell us how it all went.
This understandably is a very complicated question. It has more facts than you can any professional client interviewer can get in half an hour.
Yeah.
I guess considering how this went structurally, I would have preferred a lot more structure at the beginning. I was not explained the cost structure. I was not explained the conflict of interest policy, which I would normally be expecting as a client. I feel like rapport wasn't really built at the very start, and I think just in the client interview, that really is something that needs to be thought out in advance. I wasn't asked, how was your day, how was the weather, how are you feeling, it went straight into the privilege, into the concept of client attorney privilege, which was also not explained to me until about half a minute in. I think in terms of the questioning style, they started open, they got a very massive spiel for me, and started to hone in a little bit. I feel like when they started targeting more narrow questions, the first question was, did anything happen after your altercation with Jules? And I felt that it would have helped if they said, did anything happen? Were there any circumstances which justified this? Or like just something more broad that would have invited me to answer that question with my behavior as a client before that. Yeah, I think that sometimes their questioning was a little bit of a hit and miss in terms of them trying to narrow down certain facts. And I think they made some assumptions that didn't end up being true. So I guess they missed a lot of facts in regards to that. I guess when it came to the girlfriend in this scenario, I think they also found that a bit difficult to get facts out of, and you can kind of tell because obviously we didn't really get that little tidbit about punching a co-worker to the very end.
You definitely had to sort of feed them that at the last instance.
Yeah, it was a very last minute thing because they said, is there anything else we've missed? And I'm like, well, and full client would have said this in response to that question, even if it's so late. I feel like there really weren't enough questions asked about the situation with the girlfriend because I think they considered it to be a separate situation.
I also think they focused in and really narrowed down on that first assault a bit too much. Like there were a lot of other flags that were waved in front of them and they just sort of picked that assault as their main focal point.
And I wasn't really convinced. Wasn't kind of like, as a client, I would have been very confused by what I was being asked because I had no idea where they were going. I wasn't told what the structure of the client interviewing would be like. There was no, we'll do like fact finding, then solutions. And I guess I wasn't asked what my main issues were in enough detail. I gave them obviously like, there's some personal issues, there's some work issues. They didn't really, I think that first they considered them separately, but two, they kind of didn't really drill down enough on how many personal issues there were or how many work issues there were. Yeah, I think as a client, I'm satisfied with trusting them at the very least. Like they tried to explain everything they could to me. They answered all my questions about legal terminology. I feel like they should have been more proactive with that instead of having me, have to ask them what is mediation, amongst other various legal terms.
How do you feel like their teamwork was? Like, how do you feel they worked together in the interview? Do you feel like it was an even split, like they worked well together in that regard, or was it more one-sided?
I think there was a slight one-sidedness towards one of the competitors. And I guess that came out quite apparent to me at the very beginning because they did housekeeping and the other competitor didn't really manage to introduce themselves. Yeah,
there was only, I think it was the gentleman that was speaking for about 5 or 6 minutes in the beginning there. We didn't really hear from the other competitor until after that point.
Yeah.
I noted it down. It was 8 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
How do you feel like the working atmosphere was between you and the competitors?
I think it was good. I feel like they could have been, like, I obviously kind of tried to drip them, I guess, how the client was feeling in terms of, I'm so stressed, I've got no money, I don't have a job. And they sort of responded to that. It just sounded very rehearsed.
Rehearsed. So no real sympathetic feeling?
No, like they were sympathetic, but I don't think, I just feel like that's something that they felt that they had to do. They didn't really delve into that, how the client felt. It was just like, we're sorry this has happened to you. There was a little bit of, we can imagine that, given the circumstances, you wouldn't be too happy. There was that once. I think that should happen a little bit more, especially when I'm just so stressed about this. I've got no job. I'm not sure, money's really tight. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that also comes back to like them not being able to build that rapport with you as a client. It felt very formal at times. And like, I agree with what you're saying. When they were offering sympathy, it was almost very like rigid and stale almost.
Yeah. I think the ending of the interview was also a little bit, might have been very much timing issues, but it was also like, I would have, again, expected to hear confidentiality, cost, conflict, those things wrapped up and addressed with, as opposed to, if you have anything else you'd like to say or to follow up, just let us know. And at that point I was like, as in now, or do you want me to email?
So then following on from that, how do you feel like your client's informed choice was towards the end?
Look, they managed to get a lot of, like, given the facts they got, they managed to get the relevant interests out from those. So I think to note that I may want a compensation instead of the items back as an alternative. I obviously, the confrontation with the coworker, that didn't really come to a solution because I didn't have much time. The wrongful dismissal termination issue, I think the solution was fundamentally to contact HR. And I guess I was kind of like, well, I kind of dropped them this. I've tried to do that. And they didn't really come up with another solution. And I obviously, as a client, I'd be very confused as to where, because they keep telling me, I'll keep trying to contact HR. And I'm like, well, tried.
Do you think that the lack of focus on the leave side of things as well impacted, that it was a little bit confusing and you weren't really sure what their approach was?
Yes, because, well, especially since they didn't get a significant swath of facts in regards to that. They didn't understand what the circumstance of that leave was and how it actually truly affected the termination. So the advice they gave was not only, it was general given the facts they got, but also general in terms of, I guess, what they actually proposed.
Just following a little bit on from that, you sort of flagged a lot of issues for them, like issues where you as a client were committing, acting unlawfully, committing criminal assault in some instances, and even lying to your workplace for the purposes of vacationing. In terms of like the moral and ethical side of it, how do you feel like they really handled that, if at all?
Yeah, so I presume you're talking about the morality and ethics side of the specific judging criteria. I would have expected something in regard to that. I would have expected, a lawyer to kind of assuage the concerns of a client, to say that we're happy to help you with this, but we don't necessarily condone it. I don't think that really came out very much. It was like, oh, that's it was good for them to say, oh, thank you for telling us that. I think it really got to the point of the client building that trust to show that a client, you actually can trust us, feel free to tell us everything. But I don't think it, like, in the mind of myself as a client, I don't have an authoritative message to say I can't do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that is inherently wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I also wasn't told that lying was a bad thing to my workplace in regards to termination. So I'm literally going in thinking, this is so unfair. This is a nightmare, without really understanding my true legal position on the matter.
So in terms of secret facts that you have, do you feel like there are any like really big ones that they might have missed? Like understanding, there were some wild facts here that were probably not going to come out in a natural interview. In terms of the ones that were naturally covered, do you feel like there were any ones that really glared out to you that as not coming up?
Well, there's obviously the big one. And I guess given that there's still one set of competitors to go, I probably shouldn't elucidate on that too much. I feel like it was open to them to ask more questions about my relationship with Sasha. I think I flagged this a bit earlier, but it's also the fact that, they could have asked questions about what the relationship was during this 2-month period. And if you think about the timeline, there should be kind of red flags saying you being away for 2 months whilst your girlfriend's still in this country, something might have happened during that period. And I think that was open to them to ask what had happened. And that would have given them a lot more information regarding the nature of the relationship and the lack of contact. And we would have gotten to the cheating point a lot earlier as well, because that would have come out very early on saying, oh, I haven't contacted her because I suspected it. I feel like that was quite important. Also, the nature of leave, and the fact that I couldn't take the leave that I claimed to take was also quite important.
Yeah, I do feel like that was a pretty big ethical flag that they failed to see. Yeah. Obviously, you lying to your employer saying you're going overseas to care for your mother, and that's just not the case. You're actually vacationing.
Yeah.
And on that, I thought, like, in the circumstances where the employer has decided to terminate an employee and there's been a contact from management saying they're not performing their job correctly, there weren't really any follow-up questions on that, and that really would have elucidated those facts about the fact that, the client here is sort of lounging about, not doing their job.
Yeah, normally like that type of fact would hint at a question as to why the managing director would consider you haven't done your job correctly, and that would have opened up quite a bit of information as well.
But I think that was sort of, they tended to take your word on most things, even in circumstances where it probably wouldn't make sense. Like it would make sense, for example, the assault in the beginning, it would have made sense to get all the details about that. Like, to begin with, the client was admitting to being criminally assaulted, and they didn't really, seek to elucidate the details of that assault until like much further on. And even then we didn't get to them. Like, I really feel like you're quite generous with that fact.
I felt I had to feed them maybe a little that Yeah, I mean, they got all the secret facts eventually regarding the assault, like the client being assaulted. But I think for the rest of the issues, they did miss quite a bit. Yeah.
Well, do you guys have? Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I just feel as a client that I'd consider going back to them, but I just don't feel that I was particularly hurt out in a lot of the scenarios.
Yeah. So just following on that, you say you consider seeing them again, so you consider taking them up on their legal representation?
At least on the issues that they managed to flag, I think they were kind of quite knowledgeable in saying, like, you know, they were quite knowledgeable in saying, oh, like, these are potential solutions, make sure you get medical care. I think that is a non-legal solution, should have gone without saying, and I think it's good they flagged that. I just feel that I would have expected more solutions. Besides, get contact the firm mediation. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm so sorry. Zoom's terrible. Did you feel as though sort of the other courses of action were adequately covered? Like, I know they talked about using a CLC and a couple of things like that, you know, if you weren't in the financial position to take them on. Did you feel satisfied with those responses, or did you sort of feel as if it was a bit of a like filler comment?
I think it was a bit of a fill comment, but only because I didn't really get much substantive information regarding the eligibility for a CLC, given there are financial thresholds, given there are cashment issues, and also certain issues that CLCs don't have the capacity to deal with. Like the non-mentioned issue was definitely not something a CLC could have dealt with. And also the fact that some of these issues had happened. I guess there was an overseas element that wasn't mentioned as well.
Yeah.
That CLCs really can't deal with international issues.
All right, I think that's us wrapped up. I think Kathy's signaling to the competitors to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we just wait a moment and they'll be right back.
Should I vanish?
Casper, I'll put you into a breakout room and I'll bring you back for the second round. Expect that to be in around 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how long feedback and the break goes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Judges, did you want to do separate feedback altogether, or just
we've got their
together?
10-minute reflection first, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Sebastian, you happy to time again?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Competitors, we'll put ourselves on mute and we'll turn up our video, and just from when you start, I assume Sebastian will start timing.
Yeah. Just tell us your strengths, positives, and how you guys feel it all went.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to go first?
Yeah, so for some strengths, I feel like we empathized with him pretty well, considering all the things he was going through. There's definitely a lot of issues on the table, but I think it was good that you asked up front what the objectives were, just so we kind of had an idea that was like, okay, compensation, continue working, solve just in general personal issues. Because I feel like that helped us figure out exactly which issues to focus on, which there were a lot, but there were definitely more important ones as well.
I think we did well of organizing, I guess, the way we spoke to him, just splitting up the issues, where I started off initially with the workplace issue, you came in with the personal issue. This gave us each time to, collect our thoughts while the other person was questioning the client, just so we could figure out the right questions to ask going forward. I feel like that really helped our situation. And with the whole thing where, I guess, the whole pen situation, I think that was really great. So we didn't interject none of the people. Because it's difficult when you're not physically together, when we're all online. And considering it's 3 a.m. for you, it must be difficult.
I thought we did that pretty well. I think we also offered some pretty good solutions. I can't confidently say he was happy with all the solutions, and maybe that's more because he was hoping to get away with like the assault on, that Sasha's coworker, for example. But I think we offered, the mediation, and then you explained it. And then when he was worried about, well, what about financing? Because, COVID and everything, we did offer like the community legal services that, will save him some money there. Obviously, we would still be in touch with him if he needed us, but just like to just alleviate some finances.
Just
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think your suggestion to reach out to Jules and before anything else and kind of start that dialogue and be like, let's talk about what happened, so he can get like a proactive approach on that. The only thing I wish we did, which we talked about, I wish that we had, because those were a good mix of legal and non-legal solutions. I wish we had, because he did seem quite distressed. And obviously there is this pattern of like getting really angry and then punching somebody. I wish that we would have maybe suggested like, hey, like you seem like you're really stressed, which it totally makes sense, like COVID-19 and with your mom and with your work. Maybe, you know, you would want to reach out to like a GP and just kind of go from there, have someone to talk to and figure out other ways of talking and alleviating some stress.
Yeah, some just even like a community mental health advisor, just, you know, take care of your situation like that, because legal representation can only go so far, whereas if you're dealing with mental health issues as well, considering all everything that you told us, that would be difficult. I think that was important. I do feel like same thing that we said earlier in the reflection, we focus sometimes too much on one area of the aspect and doesn't give us enough time to address other issues that we're dealing with. And especially when he brought up the fact that he broke somebody's jaw. As much as he said himself he wanted to get away with that, like the number one thing is you can't run away from a situation like that. And I think it was good for us to advise to maintain and retain legal representation the entire time throughout that situation.
And even to just reach out to Sasha about the pawn shop and like start that communication too and be proactive. And I think that would also help, which we suggested.
Yeah, I did feel like we did well by, you know, providing the result of situations that might occur regarding trying to get his stuff back from the pawn shop. But I didn't want to ever give him the confidence that this is for sure going to happen. Like,
false hope.
Yeah, false hope. Like, I want to be like, listen, this is a possibility, but we'll go back and do some research and see how we can best hash out the situation. That was a really good thing. But yeah,
I felt bad towards the end, where I feel like we should have probed him a little bit more on why him and Sasha broke up, which then towards the end when I was like, do you have anything else that you want to share? And he admitted to the punching. I felt we kind of rushed that, and rightly so, because we ran out of time to address that. But at the same time, I think I wish we would have kind of probed into that, obviously. And I feel bad that he kind of just threw it in at the end, which I'm glad he did, obviously. But I also feel like, considering how much time we had and really what his options were for that situation, we did do a good job of suggesting what next steps would be. And in general, like, we gave him homework, which I don't know if he was happy about, to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like, even if he continues to seek, I guess, representation with us or with other people, like having, like with the police report, he asked how to go about doing that. Like, let's just say he felt like they were completely stolen from his house. Like you said, giving him homework, just because let's just say if finances is really big of an issue for him, he can take this stuff and go forward with other legal representation and have all this paperwork ready for him to provide them with help as well.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, it's just a very big, difficult situation. As we discussed in the reflection, I did feel like we didn't talk about his mother as much, but the moment he told me that there was an assault and other situations, I didn't feel like that was as pertinent of an issue, just because he told me his mother lied.
And then the wrongful, and then, well, we'd have to see if it was wrongful, but the termination. And the not being paid.
Yeah. And I do feel confident that he should be reimbursed for the work that he did carry out, even though they didn't like it or weren't fond of it. But the only way you can tell that is by asking for the terms and agreement of his employment. That's one thing I feel like we failed to address with him, and that would be some homework that he should follow up on, because that would help us understand exactly what his terms were, what his options are, and if it was termination or not.
And even just more info about what the terms were of his remote work.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he did briefly mention, you know, like I knew that, like, if after 3 weeks, like, I wasn't working in Australia, like, I would need to be replaced. like that's something that we'd also have to look into, like the actual agreement around that as well.
Absolutely. No, it's just a multitude of issues that he was dealing with. Was a little bit, like we discussed, how we changed the format where we each took an issue. I feel like it helped split up the time, but like in our reflection, I feel like one of the times when we did an interview where we allowed either of us to take the lead and the other person wrote notes more so, it gave the other person more time to just think about the right questions to ask. I feel like that really helped. Now, that in those situations, we didn't split up the time of speaking as much, whereas so more so this time, but because of that, our questioning wasn't as well as it could be. I still think it was good, but like we both realized where the assault was at the end. Like that was
a pretty big one.
Yeah, and he said it himself, and I don't feel confident in clients when they say, I guess I'll do this, I guess I'll feel that. I don't feel confident, because if I don't feel confident, they don't feel confident in the meeting. So that's a sentiment they'll carry home with them. And that's not one thing I want a client to leave with. Yeah. So I do feel like, having more time, splitting it up would be beneficial. But when you're short on time, like, this is, I guess, you have to, you do what you can with the time you have. I think we did well with not allowing him to ramble on. There were some times where he would talk about the same thing over and over again. And I wanted to, while addressing him and understanding it, but kind of stop him there to try to move on to the next issue. Just because there was so much to handle.
For sure. I think one of our biggest strengths was maybe, in my opinion, connecting with him. And absolutely. Just empathizing.
And he said it himself that there were some things he just didn't want to talk about. And one thing you brought up, like, it was very good of you, is that you should feel comfortable and thank you for being vulnerable enough to tell us these things. Because if you don't tell us these things, we can't help you moving forward. You don't want to go against your representation as well as everything else you're facing. We're on your side at the end of the day. And I think that was...
Sorry to interrupt, team. We've got 35 seconds left.
Okay. I mean, I think we're good. I think one of our best positives, we work really well together. We're a good team.
Yeah. I think that's it pretty much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Abby, were you there?
Hi, yes. So now you guys can just quickly give the competitors some feedback before we go on a little break where you can submit your score sheets and like take whatever breather you need.
How do you guys want to?
I don't mind. We can split it up and take it in turns, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll jump in first if that's all right.
Yeah, no worries.
Great job, guys. This is a really tricky question. Like, it was just jam-packed full with all kinds of wildness, and you can't even understand. But just off the bat, your introduction was good in certain aspects, but you failed to address the costs aspect of what you were doing there today. So just a couple of seconds on cost agreements and like the fact that this is a first initial free consultation followed by, if you choose to retain us, this is how it will proceed. Also, in the beginning, the discussion was quite one-sided. So I think Sebastian was taking time, but you spoke for Nermit for the majority of like 5 or 6 minutes in the beginning, and Alana only really came in after that point. She wasn't really involved in the introduction at all. So it's really important that both of you are sort of talking to the client in the beginning, establishing the rapport, just having that casual conversation with them as they come in. It can really set you up well for the rest of your interview, and it puts the client in a happier position, more comfortable in the meeting, especially like over Zoom and stuff. It's just, I just really didn't feel like that was there as much. All the judges as well, feel free to jump in whenever, but There were a couple of major issues or like flags that were waived that I thought you didn't really zoom in on enough. Very early on, the client admitted to being the victim of like an assault, a criminal assault. And we circled back to that eventually, but you really should have got the details from him as soon as possible about what happened there. So your questioning about that was really like, oh, how, like what happened after this assault? You know, tell me what the implications of this assault were. But the questioning should have more focused on like the circumstances of the assault. And a client was very generous in the end. It gave you the facts that, you know, he actually initiated the violence. But I was worried there for a while that that just wasn't going to come out. Moving on to the employment. So whenever employment is an issue, and I think you guys mentioned this in your reflection, biggest, like most important question is how are you employed? So are you full-time, are you part-time, are you casual, contractor? And that's going to inform all of your subsequent, you know, legal advice. You know, it depends what kind of leave they get, you know, what are their requirements for termination, you know, what kind of flexibility they're going to be offered in their work. Are they entitled to the minimum national benefits? That didn't really come out. So if you'd find out that he was full-time, he would have been entitled to carer's leave as a minimum national employment standard. Also on the carer's leave, so you managed to get out the fact that he was in the UK under false pretenses from his mother. I thought that was good. You sort of missed the big ethical flag there of, you know, he's told everyone he's going over there to care for his mother. That has not turned out to be true, but he's still represented to his employer that that's the purpose of him being away. And he's even gone to the extent of requesting carer's leave. That would be a false representation. You know, he's not there for carer's purposes. If he'd taken that leave, it would have been a full fraud. So that was a big ethical issue that you guys sort of missed a little bit. Does any of the other judges want to chime in on those issues, or?
Yeah, I might say a few things. Just firstly, I just want to say congratulations for making it this far in the competition, the grand final. It's an amazing job, and yeah, I just want to say good job. Just at the beginning, I thought it would have been a really good idea to have a rapport, just to sort of start the atmosphere and get to know your client a bit more. Maybe ask, how's your Sunday going? Or if you're unsure of what to ask them, maybe even look for personal traits, like they could be wearing a nice suit and just say, hey, that's a nice suit, where'd you get it from? And it can really spark a nice conversation. I loved how during the interview, you were really sympathetic for the client. You had really good non-verbal communication. You're nodding, you're showing good signs of listening to the client. And I thought you guys did outstanding teamwork, and you didn't talk over each other. And I loved how you're doing the pen tactic. I thought that was awesome. Thank you. Nomad, you're doing mainly the talking, and Alana, you're doing mainly writing and taking notes and stuff like that. I feel like that's a really good balance. I know maybe some points that overall could have been a 60-40, but for me as a judge, I feel like that is a really good balance. You want your overall person talking a bit more and the note taker to do more specific questions and stuff like that. And just echoing what Alex said, it was 8.5 minutes, Alana, it took for you to say a word. Even if it's just a bit earlier than that. Structure and goals. So I thought it was really good to have goals as a main thing. I love talking about goals. I love how you said, yeah, goals, what are your goals? Before talking about the main problem, stuff like that. But if you may have noticed, it was a bit reluctant and didn't really want to give out all the goals and stuff like that. So, but you did adapt and you got a few goals, and then you led on and let him give out the problem. But it might have been a good idea to then come back to it, just to structure the interview a bit more. And Nomad, you did a really good job at clarifying questions from the client. He was like, at one point, what are you talking about, wrongful termination, what? And then you instantly answered and you went on in depth. Time management skills, keep an eye on the time and stuff like that. And it can help with asking goals and knowing the structure. And then echoing what Alex said, your moral and ethical issues, make sure you talk about it at first, because as judges, that's what we're looking for. It would have been good to hear about your alternative dispute resolutions towards the end there, but I know we're a bit struck for time. And yeah, That's it all. And another thing for me is good job at dressing professionally. And that's about it.
Awesome. All right, I'll jump in and I won't say too much more because I think Sebastian and Alex have covered a lot of what I was sort of thinking. But again, like, great job. It was such a difficult problem. And honestly, when I read it beforehand, I was like, I don't even know where I'd start because there were so many things that you could have covered and it just would have been impossible to cover it all in perfect depth. So really good job in getting what you did get and really hold on to that as well. I think that in echoing what the boys have said, the structure from the start could have been a little bit clearer and just outlining, we're going to go through this first, we'll give you some preliminary issues and then we'll let you have a chance to tell us what happened and then we'll narrow it back in. And just giving the client a few signposts can often be really helpful for them as well. Because often I think we forget, I know it's like I've done it before where you forget that they don't have the same understanding of what this meeting is. And so really making it clear can be really helpful. And it can also help you in turn, just making sure that you're covering what you're intending to cover. I think that on the employment point as well, and it did trickle a couple of times, but something to keep in mind when asking the questions is I felt sometimes you took the client's word at face value. And it was sort of like, okay, there was an assault, great. And like, yes, it's wrong and stuff, but it just was moved on quite quickly from. And so a lack of trust in people, I don't know if that makes us too cynical, but just sort of really questioning the fact that even though he's saying that, he may just be presenting that to you. And so I think that led to a couple of things not being revealed, and the focus, particularly in that employment issue, was slightly shifted from the leave perspective and the ethical issues that the other judges mentioned. And again, just echoing the broader questions. So rather than asking what happened after, not giving him that out of not actually having to tell you what happened, because I think there was a little bit of enabling there as well. Sorry, my internet connection is unstable. So if I cut out, I'm very, very sorry. Don't be afraid to tell him he's in the wrong as well. So I think that with the assaults, it's okay to say, look, actually, you were wrong in this situation. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, because he does need to know, and he did assault someone, and that's going to be a problem. And I think sometimes we dance around it, but letting him know upfront can be really helpful, which I think you did. I think it could have just been a little bit clearer with, actually, you're wrong. You did highlight it was an issue, but just being really clear on the fact that he'd done the wrong thing. And then just finally on the balance thing, I know when I've done client interviews, every judge has a different opinion on balance and what the best thing is. And so I don't think it's particularly crucial that it's split 50-50, as Sebastian mentioned. And I think you did do that really, really well. I think there are a number of ways that you can do it that are super effective, but it only becomes an issue when it means that we didn't get a full introduction to Alana. And so, if that's, I don't necessarily have an issue with the 8 minutes at the beginning, as long as there was that introduction first, like that this, from Alana, that we did just hear your voice even, that, hi, like, how are you going? Which was alluded to, I think, that, yeah, you're never going to please everybody with the balance. And I know that I've always had different feedback, and even in the same competition, I'll go from one to the next and change it, and then I'll get different feedback, and it's like, oh, brilliant. But yeah, I think that just making sure that you at least introduce yourselves each other at the beginning is really important. Sorry, that went for longer than I was intending.
Guys, I'm just going to jump in as well for a couple of things that I've thought of with the help of the other judges. Your form, I thought in the beginning of splitting the issues, I thought that was a really effective way of approaching it. And unfortunately here, the personal issues were embroiled with the employment. So it was good to see you adjust and, take down that barrier between the two issues and then integrate them and sort of ask questions. And I think you did well in picking up on that in your reflection as well. Your questioning was good, but, you like Meg has said, you did sort of take the client at his word a lot. For example, assuming that the reason he was being terminated was because it was unfair, when, in circumstances where one of the secret facts we have is that actually the client really wasn't doing his job. But just like just for me personally, I thought a big thing that a red flag that was quite clear was when the client admitted to being, very sick recently, he was symptomatic. in times of COVID, I really thought that that warranted a question of, you know, have you been tested? Have you seen your GP? And like in this particular fact circumstance, that would have like opened up an entire can of worms for you guys. But just generally, I thought that was something that in the circumstances was a question that really should have been asked.
Just regarding the last part where he was discussing the assault, which we just addressed really late. What would be the best course of action to tell the client? Like, because from what I'm gathering, like he said he just wanted to get away with the situation, but like he assaulted somebody. What would be the best course of action in that situation? Like, would you tell him to seek legal representation, just protect yourself if the situation arises? We'll try to handle it and help protect you in that time, or like, do you try to get ahead of it and tell them, listen, you need to be forthcoming with that time and be like, hey, I did this. I admit it. Like, I just don't know the right course of action to tell the client. At that point, I just didn't know how to advise them.
Look, in the circumstances of this client, what would actually happen in practice will depend extremely on the facts of the circumstances. But for the purposes of this client interview, I think that a most appropriate course of action would have been to advise of the possible outcomes.
Yeah.
You know, the person that you punched could potentially bring you up for assault and battery in a civil court, or you could be criminally charged with assault, occasionally actual bodily harm. Just telling them of the options and like what might happen in those cases. You know, you'll be served, you might be arrested, and then just saying, and especially in the time crunch at the end, you might say, this is something we really need to address in further meetings if you choose to take us up on our representation. But this is what could happen. You know, this is a big issue for you, but we can't really advise properly without knowing the circumstances.
Yeah, that's kind of like, I just wanted to tell him, like, I knew it was an issue and I just didn't know exactly how to go about it. Obviously, because he already had trouble understanding certain terminology. I felt like the best course of action to tell him is like, you need to have legal representation. Whether you go forward with us or if you go forward with the community legal center, you need to be represented because this could be an issue later on. And he did mention finances, which is why I felt like it was a good idea to go through the community legal center route.
I think as well, like, it was really good that you flagged that for the taking in account the client's financial circumstances. But in circumstances, you know, when he's actually flagging to you, this is a real issue, my finances, maybe you could have gone into a little bit more of the eligibility of these services. You know, for example, like the testing they do at legal aid, the income and public interest testing, and any testing that a CLC would do for determining. But, you know, it's a judgment call you make based on time left.
Yeah. It was difficult with time crunch, but we do.
I think I'll just add quickly, sorry, just to that assault question with how you sort of bring it up to him. I think as well, just don't be afraid to let him know that there probably will be consequences because he's done the wrong thing. And you can be quite honest about that and clear in the sense that, you know what, you've done the wrong thing. There will be consequences, whether you come forward or not, they're probably going to work it out. So it's best to address this head on, and we will do what we can to represent you or whatever you decide that your course of action is going to be, but making him aware that there are consequences too.
Sounds good. I mean, it's just a difficult situation. I didn't want to put him in a worse position after coming to us for help and be like, listen, hey, there's like, you assaulted someone, you might go to jail. Like,
well, it's definitely important to expectation manage like that. Like, at the end of the day, they've done this thing, you know, broke someone's jaw. Telling them that it was wrong, regardless of whether or not they actually get in trouble, like it can be proved it was them. They need to understand, they need to walk out of that meeting knowing that they did the wrong thing.
Yeah. It's going to be more full on for them if they get arrested out of nowhere thinking that they're in the clear.
Yeah, for sure.
So better that they're aware.
Sometimes he's like, I just want to get away with this. And I was like, well, you really, in my head, I was just like, you really can't. Like, it's not something it's because it could carry on further. And me and Elena were talking about it in our reflection, like maybe referencing him to mental health issues. Maybe he had anger management issues. Like, that's something we felt we should have brought up, but we didn't at that time.
I think that would have been really appropriate here as well, just looking at the facts. Like, he's obviously got a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Just help him process his emotions and the way he's responding, because clearly it shows a pattern of it, because he did it at work first and he did it again with this person whose ex-partner was dealing with. So it's definitely something we wanted to address, but just didn't feel like we hit it in the time crunch.
And like, it comes down to, like, the client tells you what their goals and objectives are, but you sort of have to look at that and not take it at its face value. You sort of have to look through that and see, you know, this is what they want, but they really need to know what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I'm about feedbacked out.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. It really helps.
Once again, congratulations, guys.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
really
good job.
It was really good. It always seems super
Thank-
negative after feedback,
Not
but
at all.
yeah,
I mean,
it was
I
really
love
good.
the only way to learn.
Be proud to
Yeah.
get the grand final.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You've done really well.
Thank you, guys.
Well, great job, guys. Thank you so much to the judges for all of your feedback. So I think this is when we can go and take our break. In the interest of time, let's say we reconvene at 8:30. And so judges, like, take whatever break you need, and please, like, try and submit the score sheet during this time period as well.
I had a question. Sorry, Kathy. Are we all doing a score sheet each, or?
Yeah, individual
Yeah.
score sheets.
Okay.
And I'll pause the recording as well. So.
All right, team. I'll be the timekeeper for tonight. I'll start as soon as you guys begin talking. And yeah, best of luck. And us judges will be in the background with mics muted and our cameras off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Field. Do you prefer Charlie or Mr. Field?
I think Charlie will do for this interview, I think.
Charlie?
Yep.
Lovely to meet you. My name is Chelsea Kanoski, and this is Jason Lander.
Nice to meet you, Charlie.
You're welcome to call us by our first names.
Thanks.
Thanks for zooming in today. Is everything okay on your end with the connection and audio?
Yeah, it's all right. I think not too many technical issues so far.
Great.
So just quickly, Charlie, have you had a chance to have anything to eat? We've just had dinner ourselves, but we don't want to be rude by not offering something through the web somehow.
No, that's absolutely okay.
It's all good. All right. So just quickly, your contact details. Has anything changed? Have you changed address or contact numbers, emails, anything we need to be made aware of?
I mean, I've just moved back from the UK, but I think the address I've given you is still the same.
Yep, that's good. And the next point I just want to raise is our previous exposure to a law firm or spoken to another lawyer at all with this matter? Or
No, not yet.
Yep. And lastly, before I hand back to Chelsea, is just your criminal history or any criminal pending charges that we need to be made aware of?
As in, if I've ever been charged with a crime before?
Any history, any charges or allegations?
No, not yet.
Thank you.
Great. So we've got you in for half an hour this evening, Charlie. And from our experience, in order for the meeting to run as efficiently as possible, we've got a structure we'd like to follow. So first we'll give you time to explain why you've come to see us today. Then we'll ask some questions to gather a clearer understanding of your situation, so that we'll then be able to provide you with some preliminary legal advice. However, I do stress that this advice will be subject to gathering further information during the period of us representing you. Though by the end of today's meeting, we'll be able to let you know where we'll go from here, as well as that we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Are you comfortable with this structure?
Yeah, I think so.
Great.
So just quickly, Charlie, today's cost is free. There's no charges involved at all, no hidden fees. We'll be sending you the retainer agreement in an email after we wrap things up today, which will outline our costs. The next thing I'd like to talk about is confidentiality. So what we talk about today, what notes we take is strictly confidential. Are you aware of how that works?
No, if you could explain that to me just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So there are a few exceptions to confidentiality. So if you start disclosing information that implicates you in something and you're trying to seek that you didn't do it, but you've effectively told us that you did, we would need to break confidentiality and no longer represent you on that matter if that's what you're seeking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And just lastly, conflict of interest. If you mention any names to us that we're currently representing, so let's say Joe Blogs, and we're representing Joe Blogs, we couldn't give you representation due to the conflict of interest. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, is there a reason for that?
Oh, sorry?
Is there a reason for that?
Is there a reason for conflict of interest? It means if we're representing Joe Blogs in the current matter that you're bringing to us, then we're representing two clients on the same matter, and we wouldn't be able to give you any legal advice because of Joe Blogs already being one of our clients.
We want to be able to have your interests entirely at heart.
Okay.
If it arises, we can refer you on to one of our trusted firms.
Yep. Okay, that sounds good.
And if you have any concerns about our conduct, you can report us to the Law Society of New South Wales.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll bear that in mind.
Thanks, Charlie.
So now that's out of the way, Charlie, what brings you here today?
Well, I've just been having, some issues at work and some personal issues that I'm just trying to get some advice on. I'm not really sure where to go. It's been a very, very, very stressful period, especially in the last couple of months.
Okay. Just on the stressful period, can you give us a bit more information as to what's triggered the stressful events at all?
Yeah, so I guess I've just recently returned to Australia from the UK. I spent a couple of months with my mum. I've also got a girlfriend, Sasha, who I've been living with for the past 2 years.
Is that Sasha you said, sorry, Charlie?
Yes, that's right, Sasha.
Thank you.
Well, I guess regarding the work issues, I work as a web designer for a web design agency called Party Incorporated. And there's just been so much work just because we've had a lot of big clients. I guess 3 months ago, we were tasked with rebuilding a website for a client whose name is Alphabet. And we're trying to get a more modern website in line with their values and their interests there. And the supervisor for the project, whose name is Jules, they're very adamant that the website doesn't really need too much of a revamp. I personally don't agree with that. I just think that the website design I've got in mind will, I guess, better suit the client's interests, and it's something that will radically improve the website for the client's interests. I think the issue, like I said, that we're having is that a lot of the other people on the team also disagree with me on this, and they think that this website doesn't really need much change.
Okay.
And I guess that kind of came to a head recently. My supervisor, Jules, told me, look, we need to go with a majority agreement here. We've got to focus on what the clients asked us to do. And I guess that kind of really annoyed me because I just think that my ideas are so amazing. They'll be really, really good for the project and really, really good for the client. And so I told him this. I just told him, you know what? Like, I think my ideas are good. And I guess, kind of what ended up happening next, he just ended up, shoving me into a desk, and I hit my knee and I heard this really large crack sound. And I don't know if that's I'm just really concerned about that. I haven't really seen a doctor about it. And it's been a very stressful period, especially in the wake of that particular incident.
Oh, I'm so sorry that that's happened to you, Charlie.
Are you experiencing any pain at the moment, Charlie, with your knee?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Are you experiencing any pain with your knee at the moment?
No, there hasn't really been too much pain. I've just heard this massive crack, and I'm a bit concerned. Like, I'm not really sure what cracks in the knee besides a kneecap. So.
Okay.
And when did that occur, Charlie? When he pushed you into the desk?
So that happened a couple of months ago.
And you didn't follow up with any doctor's appointments when that happened at all, by any chance?
No, I haven't seen a doctor about this issue.
How has it been at work since that incident, Charlie?
Well, it's been a bit weird. So I haven't been back to work since, at least not at the office, because the next day I got a call from my mother, who lives in rural England. So I was very much pressured to fly to the UK to take care of her. And so I had to tell everyone at work that, I had to take care of my mum for the foreseeable future. So I guess, not really much follow-up on the physical incident at work.
And how did you communicate that to your boss or your employer? Is it Jules that you communicated that to?
No. So I contacted, I told everyone at the firm pretty much, I just can't be around.
So you told fellow employees, but not the boss?
I ended up contacting the managing director of the firm as well, whose name's
Flora. Just their name, Charlie?
Yeah, so I was about to, so Flora.
Sorry, I actually didn't catch that.
Flora,
thank you.
And so I contacted them and said, oh, is it okay if I work remotely from my mum's house for the next 2 weeks? And she agreed to that, which was good.
Have you got that in writing?
Yeah, it's in an email.
Cool.
Obviously, since I was overseas at the time, it was difficult to contact through other means. And it was good because she agreed to it, and I kept getting client work for that time. I guess things took a bit of a turn for the worse because Flora then called me to say that she wasn't happy with my work. And that kind of annoyed me because I was I was just like, you aren't really accommodating the need that I have to take care of my mother here. And that as a result, I just said, I'm going to take carers leave. If to the extent that they weren't willing to accommodate that particular issue, I just thought it necessary to take carers leave. And I ended up staying in the UK for another 2 months.
Just quick, I think I heard you say carers leave. Is that right?
Yeah.
How long was that agreed on, or how long did you apply for?
I just took 2 months off.
2 months of carers leave?
Yeah, so I just stayed in the UK for another 2 months.
And did Flora agree to the carers leave?
No, she said that I wasn't entitled to it because of the way my contract's structured. And I guess she said that the only leave I could take was sick leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you continue to take the 2 months leave?
Yeah, so I stayed in the UK for 2 months. And I guess when I got back later, I found out that they terminated my contract and they didn't really pay me for any of the work that I did in the UK. I kind of want to talk to Flora and HR about it, but because of the coronavirus, everyone's been working at home. So going into the office is not an option. And they haven't really been responding to anything that I've been sending them.
You just quickly mentioned HR there. Was there any contact name that you spoke to that you're aware of? Or is it just like a generic HR officer?
Could you say that again? Sorry.
Yep. You mentioned HR, human resources. Do you have any emails or names that we can write down?
Just general. It's just
general
it's
HR. Yep.
What objectives are you seeking, Charlie?
In regards to this particular issue?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess in regards to work, I do want to return to the firm, but I do want to be transferred to another department given what's happened with my supervisor directly. I also want to be paid for the time that I was working in the UK, and I want to get carers leave for that.
Just on that topic, I was about to ask the question before, Charlie, so thank you for raising it now. You said that you applied for 2 months sick leave. At any point in time, did you do any work in that 2 months while you were officially sick?
Well, I didn't actually apply for sick leave. I was just told.
Okay. You just took 2 months off and you didn't do any work during that time while you were still overseas?
Well, I was kind of told that, you can't take carers leave. And well, at that point I was still working. Like there was work that was being done, but I guess I was told that, that Flora was very unhappy with my work, in that period. And I guess I was reminded that, well, I was told that if the quality and the quantity of my work didn't improve, and, I would have been terminated.
Okay, so was that, sorry, Chelsea?
Was that warning given to you in writing?
Yes. So I was told that the firm couldn't keep me longer if I stayed longer than 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how, sorry.
No, you actually answered the question I was about to say, so please go for it.
And how long after you were given that warning was your contract terminated?
I only found out that it was terminated. I wasn't sure when it was terminated. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's the 3 week thing or the work quality thing that they were working off.
Okay.
And how did you find out that it had been terminated?
I'd just been notified when I got back.
Okay, so as soon as you got back in Australia, they basically said there's no job for you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
And when did you return back to Australia?
So I was in the UK for 2 months. So I flew out and then flew back in 2 months later and was told, no, there's no job. Yeah.
And is today that end of the 2 months? Is that why you've come in today, or was it yesterday that you've flown back in?
There's been some time since then.
Yeah. Are you able to kind of give us some approximate time that's transpired since that termination?
It's been a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks, thank you. Okay, so we might just go back to the start, I think, Chelsea, and just pinpoint the areas that we see that you're trying to get some advice on. If we've missed anything, please add in at any point. So you're basically, Chelsea, you've actually written them down there, so I'll get you
the objectives.
The objectives, thank you.
So you're wanting to return to work. However, because of the damaged relationship with your supervisor, you're wishing to be transferred to another department.
Yep.
You're also wanting to be paid for the 2 months work you did while you were with your mother. And you're also wanting to get approved to have carers leave. Is that approved in hindsight, or are you looking to have that approved for futures carers leave to continue looking after your mother?
Both.
Both?
For me, that's a non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable, yeah.
It's a priority.
Now, I just remember asking you a few questions about the knee, Charlie, and the accident that transpired before you left to the UK.
Yep. Okay.
Is that something you'd like us to look into?
Yeah, that is something I'd like you to look into. I'm just trying to figure out, like, if there's any action that I can take against my supervisor. I'm a bit obviously worried that I've broken my kneecap, and I just want to see if I can do and make him pay for just the stuff that's happened to me.
And that was Jules who pushed you into the desk?
Yes.
Thank you. I think we've got 4 points there, Chelsea. Did you see anything else that we may have missed? Or?
I just wanted to double check that. Did you say you wanted Jules to pay for your medical costs?
I want Jules to compensate me for the stuff that's happened to me, and obviously having possibly broken my kneecap. I think that's a very big issue.
Would you be interested in pressing charges?
No, I don't think.
No?
Not really a criminal issue. I think I'm just aiming to be compensated for this.
Did we miss anything at all? We've got 4 points there. Did you need us to say them again just to clarify?
I got the points that you're. So if you're asking if there's anything, like you've mentioned the 4 points you've got there.
Yep.
I would like to ask, you did mention that you've been having some personal issues separate to work. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so obviously, well, as I've told you, I had to fly to the UK to take care of my mother, and like, yeah, that kind of led to issues at work. But I think when I came home to my girlfriend, who I've been living with for 2 years, things haven't been really going too well. I just noticed that a couple of my expensive items, like my antique shot glasses, aren't like they're just missing. And when I asked her about it, she just told me that she'd loaned them to a friend and that she'd be bringing them back soon. Yeah, and I guess even worse on top of that, a couple of weeks after I got back, I started feeling really sick, and I was really worried that I contracted the coronavirus, especially in the couple of months ago. This was a big issue, and my vision's been really blurry, and my speech started slurring quite a bit. And so, I was looking for someone to tell about this. I was just really, really so stressed about this.
Have you been tested, Charlie, for COVID since you returned?
No, I haven't been. I guess I've been to the doctor, but I guess I told Sasha first, and she was really paranoid, and she broke up with me. So I really haven't been in contact with her since.
Okay. Just on a separate non-legal advice, you've kind of raised you've come back from the UK, you haven't been tested. So not legal advice, but just checking in, making sure, please get tested because you've raised that you are sick. I'm glad that we are in Zoom right now because unfortunately there are issues around COVID. So please just follow up with that at a later date, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, actually about that. So I went to a doctor just to see someone about this, and they actually extracted a chip from under the skin on the side of my ear. And I was told it's probably been there for a couple of months, and that I've been, I think I was told I was biohacked.
Biohacked.
So I guess the people who have been behind it have been able to siphon audio directly from my ears, and they've been able to see everything that I can see. They've been tracking my physical movements. It's just, I felt really insecure since because they've pretty much been aware of everything, every single thing that I've done. And they've contorted my posture. They've made me agitated. They've slowed my speech.
Charlie, just quickly, if you seek legal representation from ourselves, would you feel comfortable in us engaging contact with the doctor and clarifying what version and what kind of, I guess, procedure he actually did on you, so we can gain a better understanding of
yeah, absolutely. It was just such a shock to hear that effectively my entire privacy had been violated. I'm just really worried, especially since it's part of my job working for like a web design firm. I've heard so many client secrets, especially with Alphabet, the big client that we were working with, and it just completely ruined the reputation if it got to the public. And I've been trying to contact Alphabet, like the client about the big.
Did the doctor refer you on to any specialists, Charlie?
No, they just extracted the chip and said this has happened.
Have you notified your work about the chip?
I've been trying to. So I tried to contact the client. I tried to contact the firm. I tried to contact my managing director in HR, and just obviously with COVID happening, I've got no idea how to reach them, and they haven't responded to anything.
Okay, so there sounds like to be a few concerns there, and look, we want to make sure firstly your health and your mental health are under some type of care. So perhaps going back to the doctor once you do your COVID test and maybe voice these concerns that you're having ongoing thoughts about it. It's something that we can't provide any kind of certainty or any direction on because we're not qualified in that area, but please raise that with your GP.
I just don't know what to do because it's such a, I guess I've never expected anything like this to happen.
Yeah, I totally understand, Charlie. It's something that's out of left field and you weren't expecting any of that to happen today. So thank you for sharing that today. If you don't mind, we might get back to what we're here to talk about in a legal sense, strictly, if that's okay.
I would like to ask what objectives you would be seeking in regards to the shot glasses.
The shot glasses? Yeah, so obviously I haven't seen them since. I just want them back, and if not, I'd be happy with some sort of compensation, especially right now since I don't have a job and money is getting really tight, especially in the current economic situation.
Okay.
Have you made contact with the person you believe currently possesses the shot glasses?
So I was told, like, so Sasha told me she lent them to a friend, but I felt a little bit dodgy. So I followed her one day as she was on her way to work, and I saw her into a pawn shop. And like, I found out after asking, going in and saying, oh, where are they? And I was told that, she's been loaning a lot of my items to be able to pay off her credit card debt, which has come off a recent holiday to Asia. And I asked my items back, and they said they've been loaned to another customer, and only Sasha is allowed to request them back because she's the one that loaned them in the first place.
And I guess we have to raise the criminality behind that as well. Charlie, are you looking to seek criminal charges against your girlfriend?
Not really. Just at this point, I'm just trying to get everything back on track.
Okay. Well, as I see it, we've got a fair few points to give you some advice on today, and just give you the pros and cons as to how you want to proceed with that. I'll hand back to Chelsea because she's got a few notes to start with, and I think she's better in those areas than myself.
I just want to make sure we're clear on your objectives. In regards to work, you're seeking to return for work, transfer to a different department, to be paid for the 2 months work while you're overseas, and to get carers leave. In regards to the shot glasses, you're wanting to receive them back or some form of compensation, as well as maybe any other possessions that have been put on loan by Sasha. In regards to the chip that was found in your body, what are there any particular objectives you're seeking in regards to that?
I want to warn the client of the breach of their security from, I guess, my movements being tracked. I just feel like it's just been it's a massive shock, and this is like I don't know what to do because this is big.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's a good sign that you're wanting to be transparent about this, Charlie. That's going to help this progress.
I've just got there also that the non-negotiable about going back to providing care for your mother, tying that into the negotiations with your employer.
Well, it's not the fact I want to go back to care for my mother. It's just the fact I feel like I should be compensated for the work. I feel like I should be entitled to certain work rights, and I think.
And that would incorporate the flights that you've had to come back on, or the flights too.
Look, it's like, for me, that's not really a big thing. Like, like, in terms of going back to care for her, that's something I was going to pay for anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we've got the kneecap issue. Obviously, was it a formal apology from Jules? Are you seeking we need medical evidence of the broken kneecap, which you don't have today. So obviously that's something we'll get into a bit later.
Oh, thank you, I missed that one.
No, that's fine. I think that's it. I think we've got, like, is it 6 there, Chelsea? Or is it? That's fine. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got six issues here, but we've also given you some non-legal advice about your health and your general possible mental health with what's going on, just the general stress. That's what I'm referring to.
So now that we have a clear idea of your objectives, we can now give you some ideas on the steps of how we can proceed with these matters. I may like to start with your objectives around returning to work. Would you like to explain?
Yeah, I think you've communicated to us that there's some written notice that you've received that saying your employment would be terminated. We would need to see that letter before we give you any further advice, because it is a letter that's quite relevant. We'd need to see your enterprise bargaining agreement, your contract of employment.
What do you mean by enterprise bargaining agreement?
Yeah, so that's usually the award that you fall under. At this stage, we're under the assumption that you're an employee. You're not a contractor by any chance?
No, I'm an employee.
Employee, yeah. So so if you contact HR, they should provide this information to you straight away, Charlie. You shouldn't have to look for it for yourself.
HR hasn't really been getting back to me. I'm not really sure how to get that information.
Okay, well, we may need to step into that in some later date, but we'd need to have some EBA or award agreement there to see whether there's any relief in the award itself before we engage Fair Work Commission, because a lot of these awards will have a process embedded in the award itself before we need to engage a court system first. Generally speaking, it's less money. It's a quicker response due to COVID at the moment. There's a lot of claims through the Fair Work Commission. They report about it every day on their website. So please, I'm thinking we'll try to keep it out of court to start with, if you're comfortable.
Yeah, I just think how expensive is this going to be? I'm just obviously not in a situation where I can really shell out too much money on this.
Yeah, I think we definitely need more information to give you a direct advice, but on the basis of that, there are avenues. So there are alternative dispute that we can go with your employer. There could be relief in your award as well before we even talk about going to court about getting some relief.
What do you mean by alternative dispute?
So instead of going to court, there is a service, alternative dispute resolution, where it promotes communication between you and your employer, so you can discuss the issues you've been having and come to an agreement between yourselves that you both feel comfortable with. I would advise this if you're willing and wanting to continue working at this workplace, because going to court could damage your relationship with your employer, whereas alternative dispute resolution can help maintain that relationship.
And there's that space for negotiation. You're involved in the process. If we go to court, we're effectively getting a judge to look at the evidence and go, this is what I rule, and it's final and it's binding. So if we start the matter off in that field, at least we can get an indication whether we can get something that you're seeking.
Okay.
I'm thinking that's your best option at this stage until we get further evidence from yourself.
Alternative dispute resolution may also be helpful with trying to get your things back from Sasha, because for the same reasons, proceeding with court proceedings against her would also damage your relationship. So this ADR could help keep things more amicable.
I feel like our relationship's just sort of beyond repair at this point. It's not really.
Sorry.
Are you coping with that okay? Is that something that we can do to kind of give you some guidance on?
I just guess like, I just found out that, she's been cheating on me with a coworker, and it just, it wasn't the reason we broke up. She broke up with me, but I just found out that she had been cheating on me with a coworker, and it's part of the reason, just like why I got really suspicious with her response when she told me that she was loaning some of my things out to a friend, which was, I found out that, she was really flirtatious with a coworker. I got to admit that he was sleeping with her, and I just got really angry, and I really regret this, but I ended up punching him in the face and I broke his jaw.
Okay.
I fled the scene. I didn't stay behind to, I guess.
Are there any charges laid against you at the moment? Have you spoken to police about this matter?
No, I had a dark hat on, so I don't think they recognize me. But obviously, since they're a co-worker, I'm not really sure.
Well, what we're going to flag with you right now, Charlie, is should the police call you or request any written statement from you, please call us straight away.
Okay.
We can obviously talk about being your representation then and there before you talk to the police about your version of events.
Yeah, okay. I just want to figure out if I can get away, because if they didn't recognize me.
Yeah, I think we'll give you the documents to go over in a second, but just quickly, does that make sense? We can step in, but right now, I think, Charlie, you said there's no charges, there's no court dates or anything, so let's just deal with it as it arises.
Yeah, okay.
Are you comfortable with that, Charlie?
Yeah, I just trying to get rid of as many of these issues as I can.
Okay. Also, you just mentioned that you're no longer in that relationship. Would you be seeking some kind of civil action against your girlfriend to gain some retribution or payment back? Because
I just want my items or my money back at the moment.
Okay. Well, we can look at filing a civil claim. There's a couple of titles there. I won't go into the details, but basically, have you issued any letter demanding those items back, Charlie, or any?
I've just had no contact with her since.
There's a few items there we could look at a later date, mainly conversion of material or interference of the goods itself.
What by conversion, sorry?
A conversion, so someone's actually moved the item and it's no longer in their possession, but also interference with goods. So we'll need to look at further evidence that you can provide of when you think she was involved and where the evidence of her touch is. Basically, we need further evidence from yourself. So we'll flag that in our email, requesting you to provide CCTV footage, any written statements, any phone conversations, any testimony, things like that to support a claim before we actually lodge a claim.
Okay. Yeah.
So Charlie, we've obviously given you a lot of different options today. We'll be outlining these in an email that we will send to you to make things clearer. But just to outline some of the steps we'll take, we're going to be able to help you file a civil claim to get your possessions back. We can also help you draft some of these letters for instance, to your workplace, requesting a transfer, carer's leave, and the payment for your work. If that letter doesn't resolve the issue, then we can look into alternative dispute resolution or possibly even something more serious.
Yeah. We've also helped you clarify that you're not seeking criminal charges against Jules for the incident of pushing, but we can look at other avenues upon medical advice that if you can follow up with that yourself.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I definitely recommend you see a doctor just to check your knee's okay, and about these other symptoms you're experiencing ever since having that chip. Other things that we would need you to do in the meantime is send us a record of any communications you've had with your employees surrounding the discussions about the carers leave.
Sorry to interrupt, team. We have 30 seconds left.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, in the meantime, I would suggest continue trying to get in contact with the company to let them know about what's happened with the chip.
And please don't forget, if the police contact you in relation to that punch, please also give us a call and we can engage then and there if you haven't signed the retainer agreement before they contact you.
Okay. Yeah.
So we will send you an email outlining this. If you have any questions, anything else to add, or want to schedule a meeting, don't hesitate to email us back. And also we'll be sending you our retainer and confidentiality agreement. If you wish to engage us, please sign those and send them back too.
Thank you, Chelsea, and thank you, Charlie.
It was lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much for your help. All right.
Take care. Take care. And call us anytime, Charlie. We're here.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right, great job, guys. So now the client will be having a quick chat with the judges. In the meantime, can the competitors just quickly return to your breakout room? And I will let you know when it's time to return.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they seem to have got it.
Yep. Good job, Caspar. How do you feel like it went?
I think it was good. I think they I'm just trying to figure out how to do this. Without comparing things, without comparing the teams, because I'll leave that to you. I guess in terms of it was quite structured. I think I was, quite quickly explained the way the interview would go. I was told what confidentiality was. They were quite happy to explain both confidentiality and conflict when I pressed them on it. I very much appreciated that. The client just knowing where I stood, and I guess it sort of helped me inform me on what information I gave, especially in regards to the more, let's say, less legal things. Yeah, I think they got the big one, the big set of secret facts to a point. I think it was really good that they had flagged that they're definitely get a COVID test. You've just come back from the UK. I think that was very, very good contextual thinking on the fly. Yeah, and I think I felt very heard in regards to the specific issue that I raised there in regards to the gravity and the magnitude of not only the privacy issue, but also the medical issues that came up. I think they were very sympathetic to the fact that, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry that this has happened to you. I can only imagine, like, this is so out of the blue, so out of left field. And as a client, I felt very hurt when it came to that. I think one thing I appreciated with this team is that they got the spiel from me, so the standard common facts, but they took it back. They actually stepped back through the timeline and said, let's start here, and then we'll go from there. And can we bring you back to this? And a lot of the questions were very, very well asked. I'm never really sure if you should assess the questioning style on the basis of the results it gets. But I think what the questions they asked were very much aimed to get answers out of me, which worked out very well for them because it got a lot of information out.
I thought they particularly had a great approach to the questioning in certain stages, like asking very general, non-leading questions, sort of asking you to fill in the blanks, and it really opened you up to give out those facts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think there are certain areas where I would have, like as a competitor, I would have considered that, you know, maybe I would have preferred something less leading. For example, like the did you do any work during that period was a good question, but I think they probably broadened it to, is there a reason why XYZ was unhappy with the work? That was never really asked. I feel like that would have gotten out the, oh yeah, I treated my time in the UK as a holiday.
On that point, sorry, can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
One thing that I was wondering, and I don't know whether you felt it, which is why I wanted to ask, I felt there were a couple of times where you were sort of cut off a little bit when you're about to go into something else. And I was sort of like, oh, he's going to give this away. And then I think it was predominantly the gentleman would jump in and sort of clarify or reassert, which was good. But I sort of felt if he had have waited another 10 seconds, he might have gotten a bit more information out of you. Anyway,
for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, you were definitely trying to give a narrative, like a full story at some points. It really felt like they were jumping in, trying to clarify these small points as you go, rather than at the end.
That's right. I think the people ahead specifically when it actually came to the name of the managing director of the firm, because I was about to say the name and they said, "What's the name?" I'm like, "I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I think there is something to be said for controlling the questioning style, letting leading the client a little bit, especially when they start to go on tangents. But I think I did feel that I was interrupted a little bit. I wasn't sure that was a technical issue, but I think just as a client,
I also suspected it might have had a little bit to do with that as well, because it did seem very weirdly timed sometimes, the questions coming in. So I thought maybe there was a bit of a technical issue, but
as a matter of objective observation, they did interrupt quite a couple of times. But I think it wasn't in a way that was necessarily insensitive. I think the only time it might have been was when they kind of had to move as a matter of time away from the medical chip issue. They just kind of moved very quickly out of that and didn't really press on that any further. Going through
The
this.
team had a great rapport at the beginning. How do you feel like the working atmosphere was?
I think it was quite good. I think for them to go, oh, we've just had dinner. Can we send you something? Not the way I phrased it, but yeah, okay, I'll take it. But yeah, I think for them to kind of start that with going, oh, like hopefully everything's okay over Zoom. I think that's always a big issue currently, especially with practitioners. My network has a tendency to be really bad. On the very rare occasion, I was obviously really worried that might impact the competition. But yeah, as a matter of rapport building at the very start, they managed to flag that as well. I think that was it just got me to kind of open up a bit and kind of like crack a smile, despite the stress that the client at the time would have been at the time.
I could see your face was definitely different in this one. I think we could see that you're a lot more relaxed. It was
a lot less formal. I think the question about the fact that they were very evidence focused, and I think that really helped them get some information out as well, especially in regards to carers leave.
Yeah, I really do feel like their main focus was on the employment. Like I almost felt like the assaults were skated over.
Yep.
Especially that second one, like the speed with which they moved on from the fact that you punched someone and broken their jaw, I thought was quite worrying almost.
Worrying.
I think that was a matter of time, but I think the way they dealt with that with the time they had actually wasn't the worst. Like to say, if you get called by the police, don't give them anything.
Yeah, it was definitely some good crisis information, you know, like this is exactly what you'll have to do from now on. But
you're right, stopgap approach.
I think ethically though, it was sort of avoided a little bit. Like it wasn't really addressed as, oh, you know, this is an actual problem. Like you've done the wrong thing. It was more like, you know what, we'll deal with it when it comes up. And, you know, if it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's great.
But he threw out the question of, oh, I don't think they saw me. I think that I'll just say it wasn't me. And then they totally like didn't even register that. They were like, oh, we'll come back to it at a later point.
Yeah, they very much did that. I think also the first assault wasn't questioned either. Like there weren't any questions about the surrounding circumstances. And I think like I did this with both clients. I fed them the information in a way which was designed not to invite questions.
I think also in circumstances, like just everything that's come out about you throughout the interview, like it really wasn't appropriate to be taking your word as a client sometimes. Like you admit to an assault inflicted on you in the beginning, and then suddenly later on you're admitting to actually assaulting someone else. Like in my mind, that immediately brings me back to that first assault, and I'm like, oh, hang on, did this really go down like this person has told me? Or
No,
I think also they were really empathetic, and especially with that report at the beginning. But I found it really interesting that they didn't turn around and ask how your mother was, because I think that would have gotten a lot more out of you if they had which I thought they were going to do the way that they were talking to you at the beginning, and can we send you different things. I thought it was really interesting that they didn't say, oh, because we're really sorry that she was unwell. How is she now?
Yeah, I think like they very much took it at face value that she was unwell, because they kept going like, do you want to go back to the UK to care for your mother? I'm like, nice that you finished, she's still sick.
Yeah, there's definitely a trend of like taking you at face value, and I think like in the circumstances it wasn't appropriate. What I did enjoy was when you raised the legal, like the biochip issue, and they immediately like said, oh, maybe you should get some mental health counselling. But because if a client was to say that to me in a meeting, I'd also be wondering if they were mentally well.
Yeah, especially given the immense amount of stress that a client would have been under, effectively learning that entire privacy had been violated in the time space of 2 seconds when a doctor tells them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I really feel like your privacy concerns with that biohack, like they weren't really addressed as strongly. Like they were sort of rolled into the HR issue a little bit.
I think they kind of flagged that this is not an area of expertise. I would have probably appreciated just a little bit more information. And also, I would have very much questioned, do you know who did it?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And that would have gotten the very last smidge of information out, which would have been huge.
Or even just, why do you think this happened to you? Like, why is it that important that you've been chipped? I would have thought would be even just out of general curiosity, not even in a legal capacity.
But I think like they kind of knew that we have no expertise in biohacking, and that's very much flagged in the client interest as well. But I felt like they at least could have gone somewhere with that.
On the client interests, I found there was a lot of focus on objectives, which is good, and it makes it really clear. And I think that they were really focused on what we want to get out of it, and which areas we're going to hone in on. I sort of felt that although it was effective a couple of times, it did make it a little bit disjointed, that if they had flowed a little bit longer, then more information might have come out, rather than, I think they said it 3 or 4 times, the objectives. And you did note it at one point that, I've already, you said the 4 things before. And so I think finding that balance is really tricky, but how did you feel about that?
I think it was really good for them to note I didn't want to pursue anything criminally. I think I've been in enough client interviews where the interviewers have gotten completely the wrong story. They've made the assumption that I want to pursue someone criminally for something, and it's just not been the case, or vice versa, civilly. I think they did get a bit repetitive, but I think I did feel like as a client, I thought I was more heard. I was quite well heard, because they kept reiterating things back to me, saying, so just to make sure that what you're saying is this. I think there were fewer assumptions made incorrectly as a result of that, even if it did end up being a little bit repetitive when they kept going on, when they kept summarizing again and again and again. I think there's a balance to be that, and I think, obviously they may have overdone it a bit, but I think it was good to actually have it in the first place.
So sorry to cut you guys off, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be bringing the competitors back now, because we are running a bit over time.
Yeah, as always happens.
Yes,
it's inevitable. I guess that's what happens when you want competitors to get really thorough and detailed feedback. I might pop into the breakout room. Maybe they didn't see my message. I'll be right back.
Really great job as a client, though. Very well done.
I've dealt with about more than 15 client interview questions in my time. This, Sarah, I know you're watching, takes the cake.
This is definitely one of the more interesting set of circumstances I've seen as well.
Yeah.
I'll get my timer ready.
All right. Casper, would you like to return let me assign you to a breakout room, and you can chill there. Unless you have something to do. If you have, all right, then if that's with you, you can just chill and come back for when we announce the results then.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Casper. All right, it's time for the self-reflection session then, and I'll leave you guys to it.
No worries. So yeah, team, you've got 10 minutes to do it. I'll start the time when you guys begin talking. And yeah, just give us your strengths and weaknesses and how you think overall it all went.
Thank you. So I'll just start now, Chelsea. So the working atmosphere, I feel we established small talk, expressing sympathy and acknowledged the emotional side of our client. And there's a few issues there that we had to stop and kind of acknowledge before we moved on to any other legal issue. That's what we did well. A con on our working atmosphere is the client's expectations of how many legal issues he thought he could fit into 30 minutes was quite on the high side. I lost count after 6. I'm not sure how many you counted, but there was definitely more than 6.
I think we kept it professional. We kept it pretty friendly, cheerful considering all these emotional things he's experiencing. I liked how you made him laugh at the start.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was good. Moving on to the description of the problem. We asked and reaffirmed with the client that we understood how they viewed their situation. We asked a lot of open-ended questions.
Yeah, we did.
But cons with that, I think there was room for improvement with starting out with open-ended questions and then moving into closed.
It's a fine line, Chelsea, so don't put too much emphasis on that. I mean, in practice, I'm assuming that there is no set amount of questions you have to ask before it starts going close-ended, but that's just an assumption.
Yeah, well, just something we could work on a little bit, I guess. We could have also questioned the client a bit more systematically. We tried not to jump around the topics, but we did a little bit. If we did it more systematically, it would have been more professional and would have helped make sure we didn't miss any key information.
Yeah, I feel like the client had a lot of information, and we had to acknowledge it when it came up.
Yeah.
And that was one of the main factors as to why we had to jump. I think we flagged well and signposted as well as we could have, but due to how much legal content we had to get through and how many non-legal content, I think that really was the main factor as to why we had to jump.
Yeah. In regards to clients' goals and expectations, what pros did you see there?
I thought we identified and clarified the legal and non-legal matters really well. We also identified whether he was willing or wanting to press criminal charges or whether civil charges were more appropriate for his girlfriend, but also for his supervisor, Jules. So I think we clarified a lot of his expectations, and he probably wasn't aware that there's a lot of legal issues that he had. So I'm thinking that was a definite pro. On the con side of things, I would have liked to given him a better summary of kind of weighing it up. So this option has its advantages because of X, Y, Z. However, there's limitations, but we didn't have enough time to actually go through every single one like that.
I liked how with the client's expectations, we found out what his priorities were.
Yep. And did you, next one?
With problem analysis, we outlined the legal and non-legal issues to the client and checked in that they understood. And we analysed the problem from both a legal and non-legal viewpoint based on their objectives. But the cons, we could have further clarified that the client was understanding the terminology we were using. I think we used a bit of legalese, and he may not have much knowledge of the law, so we could have been more careful there. And while we did outline and explain some of the client's problems well, I feel like we didn't do all of them in enough depth. But hopefully we could do that in another meeting with him.
Definitely. I think there was a few issues there that we couldn't really ascertain and provide them a guaranteed solution due to the lack of information provided. But we tried to weigh that up on the spot as best as we could.
And we possibly could have analysed the problem with a broader view.
Does that bring us on to moral and ethical?
Yeah.
Yep. Morally, I felt like we handled the emotional response and the general, human nature of him having potentially COVID, and he was quite comfortable with us saying, I think you need to see a doctor. Ethically, I do want to flag that we potentially missed that criminality side of things of him running away in a hood. We may need to follow up and report that to the police. However, yeah, I think that's an ethical thing that we may have overseen.
Another ethical thing could be if he has contracted COVID and he hasn't had a test, we're not sure who he's coming in contact with.
Yeah.
That could be an ethical issue. In regards to alternative courses of action, we provided to the client multiple legal and non-legal pathways and explained the pros and cons. However, we didn't explain the pros and cons of all of them. We basically focused on the pros and cons of litigation in court as opposed to alternative dispute resolution. I would have liked to have gone through all of the courses of actions that we suggested and gone through the pros and cons of every single one.
I think if we had 1 or 2 legal matters, that would have been highly likely. But yeah, I do want to flag, don't be too down on yourself about that.
But with more time and more information, we would be able to do that with him at a later date.
Definitely.
That leads into the client being able to make an informed choice.
Yeah, I think to start off with the con maybe first. So for the negative, he didn't provide enough information. We basically didn't provide him with enough information to really weigh it up on the spot. We actually flagged that we needed more information to give him that advice. I think if there weren't as many legal issues, we would have been able to navigate that personally. I felt like a bit on the back foot trying to list legal problems and then another one popped up or another non-legal issue popped up and we couldn't get through our structure that we would have liked. I think that's something we could have improved on next time. However, for the affirmative, I think what we did well was we provided a range of legal and non-legal options with the pros and cons. So we may have just flagged it, but we didn't go into the depth, I guess, is the reason why I'm saying it was negative, that we didn't do as well as we could have.
In regards to effective conclusion, a con would be, ultimately, I would really like to, about the 5-minute mark, I would have liked to have briefly outlined his legal issues to him, repeated the possible courses of action, listed those, and asked if he needed us to re-explain the pros and cons of those. I also would have liked to more clearly say, this is what we're going to do, this is what we need you to do. I did a bit of that, but I feel like I left it too late, so I was rushed and I might have missed some of the things we needed to do and he needed to do. And I didn't have time to really make sure that he was leaving feeling completly comfortable and secure.
At heart, and I was aware of that because now working with you for a few times, I know how you kind of operate in the conclusion space. But I think we just had so much to get through, Chelsea, that the structure of our conclusion needed to be adapted to what had transpired. And I think going forward, we would need to learn how to be more succinct in the conclusion and maybe just go, this is what we need. Just move on and just, if they're trying to raise something, listen, but maybe just take control and just be a bit more succinct. And that's something that maybe we need to work on as a team.
But we did politely end the meeting, so it left the conclusion on a good note. In regards to teamwork, I think we bounced off each other well. I didn't feel like either one of us was really dominating. It was pretty shared.
I feel like there's a lot of things that you jumped in that I wasn't even thinking about. There's a couple of questions you were thinking about that I was about to ask, and I had to acknowledge it because you're a bit like, oh, is it okay? It's like, it's fine. You actually asked the question that I was about to ask. So I think that is a testimony to our teamwork. That I think people even saw that happen on the streams tonight, and I had to say it because that's our teamwork showing through. We used a different tone and structure to each other, I guess. Like, we don't want to be the same person across the camera. We have to have a bit of character difference, and I think we work with that really well. We know how to share that as a team.
45 seconds left, team.
Thank you.
I think we attempted to adapt the approach to the particular client too, by being sympathetic at times, but also trying to keep some structure since there was so much information, trying to like signpost to each other where we were at throughout the interview. Like, now we're going to now, like, we've got these objectives, now we're going to give advice on these objectives, and now we're going to summarize. But we could always signpost better as well.
Yeah, look, I think we can't be too hard upon ourselves. These questions are hard questions at the grand finals, so they're meant to throw us on our back foot.
We do that.
That's 10 minutes. Thank you, team. You just want to follow the same structure, judges? Alex, did you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Kathy, we're fine just to jump into the feedback, yeah?
Yep, of course, go for it.
Awesome. Congratulations, guys. Made it to the grand final, and you've done a really good job.
Thank you.
And you should be really proud. It was a great performance from both teams, actually. But, and I try not to be too negative, but it's always easy to give negative feedback, so I'll start with some strengths. I thought your teamwork, as you flagged in your reflection, was really good. You bounced off each other well, and if there was any sort of instance of clash, it was like you had that dialogue and it was great. Your structure of the entire interview was really good. I felt like it was a really structured interview. It all sort of made sense to me. There were a couple of like cracks in the back end a bit, but like this was a wild set of facts. I would be amazed if you like didn't crumble a little bit under there. Like, who saw some of this stuff coming? I really enjoyed your focus on the chronology, like building the timeline, returning to the timeline. Dates weren't really a strong aspect of this set of facts, so that was a bit rough, but it was really good, and it's a great thing to get into the habit of when you're interviewing a client. A couple of things is that you tended to focus a lot on the employment issues. I felt like the assaults in particular were really underplayed a little bit. So a big thing you missed in the first assault, that one with his supervisor, Jules, I believe, was that was actually instigated by the client. And I think that was a bit reflective of the fact that sometimes you just sort of took the client at their word a little bit. So the client would give a narrative, and it was more about what was the follow-on from this thing, rather than questioning the client as to the events that actually occurred. Especially like in the circumstances, a lot's happening with this client. Not only that, like, they've admitted to assaulting someone, they've clearly got a fractious relationship with their ex-partner. You know, they've got some kind of weird biohacking stuff going on. Like, I really think there should have been more of a focus on determining the reality of the situation and not just taking the client's version of events.
When we clarify with the actual client that they weren't seeking criminal charges at all, would that negate actually asking questions as to ascertaining assault in general?
Well, like, it's important because it doesn't matter if, like, in the set of circumstances that was actually occurring here, the client instigated the violence. So they pushed the person against a wall, followed by being pushed back, then pushing the client back. So even though the client has no intention of bringing criminal charges, like, that's got nothing to do with what the other person might be thinking.
Okay, so sorry, I misinterpreted. It was more so for what they could be facing from someone else. Thank you.
For sure.
Yep.
I really liked your questioning. So, like, whenever something was said, you'd ask a non-leading question. It was appropriately broad at times, but also narrow in others. And you really gave the client room after you built like that really strong rapport to tell you what they wanted to tell you. The only issue I did have was that occasionally you kind of cut the client off. Like, if you had a pointed question that you really thought you needed the answer to, you sort of like jumped in with it. The client was a storyteller, and they really did want to just give you information in big chunks. And that can be, you know, you do want to keep control of the interview. You know, you want to direct it to where you want it to go. But it just comes down to recognizing that the client here sort of has the story, wants to give the story. And sometimes when you were like jumping in with a question, it was in circumstances where the client was about to give you that information. And it just sort of broke up the interview a little bit at times and made it a little bit awkward. But like, it wasn't a huge issue for me. And I think it was appropriate at times, like when you wanted to get details out about the nature of the employment issue, like, was that in writing? Very important question. And I'm glad it was asked. But like, you sort of just jumped in and asked it instead of waiting for the client to tell their story and then you sort of collecting the information at the end. And that can be a bit of a form preference, but I think in the circumstances, the client really wanted to tell you, and then you guys go from there. like you flagged this in your reflection, there was a lot of legal jargon that just sort of got spat at the client at once in the employment side of things. Like you mentioned the commission taking proceedings in court, you know, maybe could be non-legal options. The client was repeatedly like asking you to explain legal jargon, and I feel like it all sort of came out at once in the employment. Like it sort of spilled out a little bit. That was probably a time consideration as well because you wanted to wrap that up. But and sorry, just on that, in your opening, you really well explained the confidentiality. I thought that was excellently done. You know, it's not often that you have to like really bring it back and really spend a few minutes on that. And I think you guys handled that really well and integrated your time management accordingly. I'll try not to go on too much longer.
We need the feedback so we can get better.
Yeah.
The second assault, like I felt like that was really quickly dealt with. Like you gave good crisis advice. I thought, you know, if the police contact you, this is what to do.
Yeah.
But like it was just very quickly done. Like we only spent like maybe a minute or two on it in total. And it's a really big issue. Like it's a criminal offense. You know, assault occasioning actual bodily harm. They could go to prison. It just felt like it was dismissed quite quickly, and then you move straight back on into the property. So maybe just in future, and also the non-legal side of things, like you could tell the client was just trying to get out of it. Like they were giving you facts that, oh, you know, maybe they didn't see me, maybe I can get away with this. That client really should have left that meeting knowing that what they did was wrong, like understanding the impact of what they did. You know, there are going to be consequences of breaking someone's jaw, even if you don't get caught. And I thought that could have been done a little bit better. I think that's about it for me. Maybe like it was such a curveball with that biohacking, and I sort of understand that. Like if someone put that to me on the spot, I really wouldn't know what to say either. But you did really well. You offered them to get mental health advice. I think that was a definite go-to in those circumstances. Like I mean, the privacy stuff was hard to deal with on the spot, and I did feel like a little bit it got rolled into the employment issue. You know, getting in contact with HR, and that can sort of solve both problems at once. But like I think in the circumstances, it was well handled.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a few from me, but I'll pretty much be echoing Alex. He really covered it very well. But yeah, just firstly, very complex question. You guys tackled it very well. Congrats. And also amazing job for making it to the grand final. You should feel proud.
Thank you.
At the beginning, I loved the good rapport you established with the customer. You didn't dive straight into your formalities straight away. How's your connection on the Zoom, and can we feed you through the camera? Oh yeah, it was really good. And moving straight on to your formalities, amazing. He even questioned you on them, and then you were straight on and answered back. So I loved it. It was really good.
Oh, thank you.
Great understanding and answering to client questions. At one point, he asked you, what is an enterprise bargaining agreement? And straight away, you answered back. I loved how good you were and precise.
Thank you.
Your structure was great. I loved how at the beginning you outlined, this is what's going to happen. Boom, 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 boom. Straight away, you asked, what are your goals out of today's session? And then further on into the interview, you recapped. Maybe you recapped again. I'm not 100% sure how many times.
We did a few times, definitely.
Yeah. And then just on that ethical issue again, I know Alex raised it. Don't be afraid to say to the client, you're in the wrong. And they need to hear that, to say you're in the wrong. Because I know at one time he was trying to say, oh, I was wearing a hood. They probably couldn't see me. I can hide it.
Yeah.
Just let them know that, you know, and say you could potentially be in the wrong, and there could potentially be consequences arising from this.
I think I didn't spend the time that we should have on it, but due to how much extra was happening, I kind of said, well, nothing's happening right now, but if it does, we can help you then and there.
Help you there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You brought up the police.
That was my way of kind of going, hey, look, we acknowledge that it's wrong, but I didn't communicate that. So.
I loved how you guys were sympathetic throughout. And I've got a note here, be patient with open-ended questions and stuff, because when your questioning was really good, and I know Alex touched on it, at some point you would interrupt and then lead on to other questions, and then you missed out on some other facts because you already asked that question, so you didn't go back. So you missed out on some other facts.
Okay. So
yeah, my point there is just be patient and just make sure that the client's finished and you've gotten all the facts from that, and then proceed with the little questions. But yeah, overall, great teamwork. a few clashes at times, but there wasn't really many. Potentially, like me and my partner, when we, I always like kick him or knee him or like something, so then he knows that I'm talking.
Well, it's kind of ironic because you're wearing a rugby league jersey, so yeah.
And yeah, great self-reflection. You brought up a lot of ideas, and yeah, that's pretty much all from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, really great job. It was such a difficult question. And I was reading through it before the comp, and I was like, my goodness, if people get this, it's incredible. And then you did, and I was so excited for you when you got that bio shipping one, because yeah, so out of scope. So awesome work. Really, really good job overall. At the beginning, like I felt really comfortable and I wasn't even being talked to. So I think you created a really good environment. I was sort of leaning towards the camera and I was like, and you could see that in the client as well. So I think we could definitely see a relax in his face, and that was really awesome. And having the structure at the beginning was really good. You created that really warm, clear environment, which really set you up for the rest of the interview. So really great job there. Like hold on to that clear structure and introduction, because the more that you hone that and make it really, really pointed, the better the rest of your interview is going to stay. And I think we saw that your questions were really clear. You handled his questions really well. And it was really great to see. I think having all your conflict and criminal charges and costs and confidentiality at the beginning was really good as well, making sure that you did cover those points, because then it wasn't a stress to go back to at the end and make sure that you'd done those. Just a couple of points, and I am, largely echoing what Sebastian and Alex have said. I was really excited when you picked up the carers leave point. You did that pretty early. You were really onto that. And so that made me really happy, because that was a really important point of that employment claim. So I think that was really good that you did lock on to the important point of that scenario, and were able to deal with that. There were a couple of times where I sort of was ready for him to give you the bit of information, and then a question would be asked. And I was like, oh no, go back. Like we were so close. So just, echoing that sometimes, even a couple of seconds isn't the end of the world where there's no talking. Sometimes it can just be a relaxed transition. Even though I know when I do it, if there's any silence, I freak out. And I'm like, oh no, okay, what's my next question? I got to ask something straight away. But sometimes you find that, he says it and he'll reflect a little bit and be, oh, actually, yeah, because this happened. I think one thing that I think is just interesting in cases where someone's unwell is to ask how they are now, because a lot more information would have come out about his mum and the situation there, in that she wasn't actually unwell. And so that led to a lot of the carers leave as well. So you did create that warm environment. It was really personable. And so just little questions like that, I think would really take it to the next step in that sense. You had really good clarification of the criminal aspects, his intentions with those as well. I think it was really important about to isolate whether he was wanting to pursue criminal things. You did that really well also. And then I just did want to raise the ethical assault as well, which has been said, so I won't labor on that one, but as you said, just let absolutely. And it's one of those things that it's really hard to tell somebody that they're wrong, and it can feel really uncomfortable as well. And you sort of, I'm like, oh, are they actually wrong? Am I 100%? Because I don't want to come out and put them in a position where they're not feeling good. So it is really, really difficult to do, but just that you can. And that's law, that you're either you are right or you can do the wrong thing. The only other thing, my last thing was, you mentioned in your reflection that you thought you could do better ethically around the COVID issue. But I think that was actually irrelevant because he didn't have COVID. And so the fact scenario was that he thought he had COVID, but his symptoms weren't COVID symptoms. And he went to the GP, and that was the chip instead that was causing all his symptoms. So don't be too hard on yourself about that. Because he didn't have COVID. So you did well there. Yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you.
I think that's all, Kathy. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So I'm just going to close all of our breakout rooms and bring everyone back then. Thank you so much to the judges for such detailed feedback, and great job to the competitors. So now the judges, you can go and take some time to fill out the score sheet, and for the competitors, we'll just hang around until the results are announced.